Hi, friends. My name's host Eric. I'm the host of Talking with Famous People. And the guy who tonight is asking the provocative question, are low-ranking males most innovative? because I want to show how innovative I am. I'm going to pronounce it innovative. Are low-ranking males most innovative? Good question. Interesting question. Why are you asking that question? Okay, thanks, Curious Kyra. I'll keep that in mind. The second spelling makes more sense, doesn't it? Rather than dopamine. Dopamine. Anyway, provocative question. Are low-ranking males most innovative? Why did I ask this question? Where is this coming from, Eric? What are you talking about? I'm not sure what you mean. Well, I was just enjoying some pleasantry. Now, if you want to enjoy some pleasantry and you're not really feeling like anything too challenging and you just want some pleasantry in your life, try going to BBC Earth and watching some of the best of things. I was enjoying best of meerkats. Anyway, they did this interesting experiment with the meerkats. And to me, it was revelatory mostly of how evolution forces a frame that at least half the time surely is wrong on scientists in general. So they did this test that said that they put a scorpion in a Tupperware container. Meerkats like to eat scorpions. And it was see-through. And it had little holes in it for the air to get into the scorpion, and so that they could kind of put their claws in there, but they couldn't actually get to the scorpion through those little holes. They could see it, they could touch it, but they couldn't get it. So the way to get it to the scorpion, you had to turn the lid on top, okay? And if you turn the lid on top around, it's like a salt thing where it has one little open spot, and you can turn it and either cover the open spot or uncover it. So they did this test, and it turned out that some meerkats could successfully solve this problem, and many or most meerkats could not. And the ones that were most likely to solve the problem, be able to solve the problem, were low-ranking males. Now, because of the general evolutionary frame driving all discussion of biological realities, they naturally conclude that this is because the low-ranking males most need to innovate. That they're the ones that have the least effective other ways of attaining food. But the high-ranking meerkats basically steal the food gotten by others, and they don't need to innovate. This is their explanation, right? But it's quite possible, it makes a lot of sense to think about it the other way around as well, which is the reason that these males are low ranking is because they're innovative. Now, what does it mean to be innovative? It means to not spend your time doing the things that are already well established as being the way that we do things. It means varying, deviating from the status quo. So if you are consumed by this evolutionary frame, and it's influencing everything you have to say and think about a given species, then you're going to say, obviously, the reason the low-ranking males are more likely to innovate is because they have more need to innovate. But you're missing kind of the important part, or the important consideration jumping at the obvious and assuming that people or meerkats or whatever can become what they need to become as circumstances change accordingly, The point being that certainly it's plausible that, in fact, the reason that they are low-ranking males in the first place is because they aren't practical, that they don't do a good job of attending to making sure they've gathered enough berries or whatever, that they meowity, right? They're not good sensors. So as a consequence, they're low-ranking. To me, that makes just as much sense as the other explanation that they are more innovative because they need to be. After all, it's not the case that human beings can do that. Human beings can't become more innovative when they need to be. Human beings can't, well, now he's doing the NE polar test on me, so now I'm going to have to step up and muster the innovation that otherwise would have been absent from my perspective on the world. Might it be the case that, in fact, the reason intuitive males sometimes feel like they're getting short shrift in the mating economy is because, in fact, they are like the innovative meerkats. They are low ranking because to be high ranking ultimately in the community is to, attain against as many community norms as possible. And to be innovative makes it impossible to do that inherently, definitionally. Does coincidence equal miracle? Yes. Yes, it does. Every coincidence is a miracle. I think that's not too big of a claim, is it? So, I don't know. Somebody give me an example of a coincidence. Well, let's see. What's a good example of a coincidence? TI heavy INFJ versus INTP, how to differentiate. I mean, easy squeezy, no comparison. No matter how TI effective an INFJ is, they don't link to TI the way that INTPs do. They don't attend to TI as at best, an INFJ is a highly effective amphibian, but they still are not fish. And to me, it's easy to tell the difference. INTPs are better at even the TI questions that require a lot of SI. One way that you can tell the difference, or one thing that you should be noted about the difference, is that INFJs are better at TI questions when they require less SI. The kinds of TI questions that require the most SI are genealogy questions. And those ones, you'll see INTPs kick all kinds of ass on. They'll kick ENTP's ass on them, and they'll certainly kick INFJ's ass on them as well. However, they are likely to be low-ranking males. Innovative though they may be. Yeah, well, Curious Kyra, genealogy questions. Okay, well, Garrett Hurt, see, this is what I'm talking about too. Look, it makes sense what Curious Kyra says, that as an INFP, she does well on genealogy questions. First of all, I think INFPs can have highly correct in testing TI. So my friend Liz is an INFP, and when presented with sort of test challenge kind of games kind of things, she really shows herself to be quite effective at getting the correct answer. But that's why we need to look at how they approach it in terms of like not just speed, but you can really observe if they're talking it through, especially what mental processes go into solving the problem. So it's like with FI DOMs, they tend to sort of go, oh, we're playing checkers now. I get it. And they shift into this black and white thing, especially INFPs. And you can kind of watch them do an extra layer of conversion as they're going through it. They're definitely slower than INTPs and less native to it. Doesn't necessarily mean they're as wrong, okay? I mean, more wrong, you know? So, let's see here. Garrett Hertz says, I'm INTP and I struggle with genealogy. This is what I'm talking about. Self-reporting is meaningless. We don't know what Garrett Hertz means. So let's say Garrett Hertz is correct. That he, in fact, is INTP, but still struggles with genealogy. We have no idea what that means. Comparing against what, you know? Is he comparing against how well he does on the other TI questions? Is he comparing against how well other people do on the genealogy questions? Is he comparing his own ability with genealogy questions against the mean? And is he correct in his comparisons? I have no idea, you know? Does the coach play a part in the football team winning the Super Bowl? Yeah, totally. I mean, how long ago did I type you, Garrett Hurt? Was it a long time ago? If it was a long time ago, it's possible I made a mistake. I don't know. If you say you find it hard to keep up with all the words, then you're not an INTP. Almost for sure. I mean, as far as granted, there are degrees as well. You know, there are like degrees of TI, comfort, and interest in INFJs, for example. My friend Corey and Rachel, they are less TI than some INFJs. I messaged my friend Stephen Brooks, who's a debate coach, and an excellent debate coach. But they still all approach TI from the same kind of third slot angle. Rachel is in bed right now, taking a nap or maybe going to sleep for the night. She's tired. Shoot. Earlier, after that last video that I published, which was an answer to some ISFP questions, Rachel and I went inside to have some sexual intercourse. And of course, as always happens, once sexual intercourse is concluded, then I wake up 3 hours later or something, you know. It's nothing puts me to sleep like sexual intercourse. It is like the ultimate instant Klonopin, you know. It's just lights out. I am nappy nap time. So then I woke up a few hours later, and Rachel was out here. She was watching Sex in the City, which is a show that she likes to watch. She's watched before. She's like in her SI, I guess. I'm not bragging. I'm not bragging. I'm following up on the question of Rachel. When I came out here and started, like, kind of took over the TV, she's like, okay, I'm tired anyway. I'm going to go take a nap. So she may or may not wake up again this evening or stay asleep for the whole night. Am I bragging? I mean, you could say that, but the thing is, I do kind of a play-by-play about my life, about everything. Okay, well, I probably rushed the innie a bit. Okay, well, even if that's the case, Joey, obviously around here, I can't get away with it. for very long. So, I mean, the thing is, I do play-by-play about everything. I include the embarrassing stuff that makes me, I guess, look good. I mean, it's hard to think of me. It's hard for me to think of it as bragging because, um, you know, it's not like I went out and slayed some chick. This is my girlfriend that I've been with for a year. It's just sort of standard operating procedure that there's going to be like if I said, you know, I wrestled with the old ball and chain until until something felt a certain amount of relief, and then I crashed out. And she were, I don't know, my age and settled into her heavy phase, let's say. And then probably people wouldn't think I was bragging, right? So I guess it's kind of a compliment that people think I'm bragging. If I were to say, if I were my dad, and I were going, then I had sexual intercourse with my wife, and nobody would think I was bragging. They'd just be like, okay. Anyway, I don't know. If that's what it is, that's what it is. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be doing that. So just to be, everybody humble Eric. Eric needs to be constantly humbled. If there's one thing my beloved audience has made clear, it's that Eric needs to be constantly humbled. To reiterate for those who got here late, the reason the title is what it is because of this meerkat experiment that I was just watching on. I was interested in watching some David Attenborough movies, videos or whatever, because the sound of David Attenborough's voice makes me feel safe and relaxed. He's kind of like the Vin Scully of non-baseball. So anyway, I was watching some David Attenborough. There was this really frustrating instance, by the way, speaking of like sexual economy, there's this very brightly colored bird that's orange and yellow. And so it takes a long time to set up this like mating, I guess you might call it like a mating stage. He like stages this area for when a chick comes around because he's going to put on this whole big performance to try to get laid, right? So one of the things he does is he takes turns with his pupils and his eyes dilating, getting big and getting small. And he'll do one, and he'll do the other one. It's really, really weird looking. And then he does this weird thing with his wing where he goes like this and shows it to her. There you go. You know, and then he picks up like this berry thing in his mouth, and he goes, starts like doing a little like sexy Chippendales dance for her, right? And so you're really caught up in this thing. You think like, yeah, he's gonna score. He's totally gonna score. And then this other bird, this other male of his own kind of bird, that's been like getting up in his business, right as he's about to get on the chick, who should show up again? That's right, the rival bird. And now he's got to deal with the rival bird. And when he comes back, the chick's no longer in the mood. She's just like, nah, fuck it. I'm not interested anymore. It was so, I really felt for that bird, let me tell you. I really, really felt for that bird because he spent such a long time setting up the stage to get everything just right, to do his little dance, he had the berries ready, he had everything good to go. And that other fucker cock blocked him, you know? Anyhow, the point is that in the meerkat community, the only meerkats that seem to be able to open up the Tupperware container and get the scorpion out are the low-ranking males. And of course, these biologists, whatever you want to call them, who are studying the meerkats conclude that the reason the low-ranking males are able to open the Tupperware is because they have a need to open the Tupperware that the high-ranking meerkats don't. That because they're low-ranking, they don't get to like steal other meerkats' food or hoge off of the other meerkats' efforts or whatever, that they've got to get whatever, that they're likely to get their food stolen from them. So this need drives their ability, their ability to innovate and figure out how to get into these containers that regular meerkats can't. But my whole point in this stream is it seems more likely that it's the other way around, that the reason that they're low-ranking males in the first place is because they're innovative by nature, that they don't attend to the practical, normal, day-to-day things that successful meerkat ESTJ does, you know. Obviously, your ESTJ, your ENTJ meerkats, they're going to be substantially more effective at gathering whatever the shit is that they gather and mating and whatever, all the various things that meerkats do. Whereas if they're always wondering about, I wonder why it is that there never seem to be scorpions under rocks over there, but there are always scorpions over rocks under here. And it's like some of the meerkats are sitting around there thinking like that, right? Those meerkats are the ones who are going to be most innovative, but they're also going to be the laziest, as Joey says, the least likely to attend to their daily duties. So my point is that when we get rid of the bullshit evolutionary frame that every behavior is responsive to a environmental pressure and start understanding that entities are configural strategies of dealing with complex realities that change on lots of different vectors, then we would interpret that data differently, wouldn't we? We wouldn't say that, well, innovation is driven by need, therefore the low-ranking males have to become more innovative to feed themselves, so they do. We'd say innovation correlates with low rank, which seems much more likely. After all, meerkats, like people, are individuals. We don't typically think of individual animals as having personalities, but anybody who's had a pet, dog or cat, knows that's bullshit. Anyone who's had more than one knows that dogs and cats have very distinct personalities. That one dog is very unlike another dog, you know? Louis the 17th says, be fruitful and multiply. I already get it. I've multiplied enough. I have one child, and that's plenty of children. Joey says, being an innovative thinker is high risk, high reward. I'm not sure that's usually the case. I think usually the case that it's high negative impacts, low positive impacts overall, with a long shot chance at high positive impacts. I think that's maybe the best way to put it. Well, so here's the thing about somebody like Steve Jobs. It's easy to say that Steve Jobs was an innovative thinker. But really, he was exceedingly good at following through and implementing a singular vision for a product with universal appeal. Is that exactly innovative? I'm not sure. Like, it's certainly the case that if you're talking about Apple phones or something, that that they intentionally left out lots of features they could have put in order to maximally milk the people for money, you know? Okay, but that's such an NI kind of innovation, right? Joey, look, that's straight up NI innovation. That is, there's no NE in that at all. It's like I was joking with Rachel the other night. I said, here's my imitation of an ENTJ good idea. Okay, I've got a great idea for a television show. Sex in the Country. You know that show Sex in the City was a big hit, right? What's off the air? I've got a twist. Let's make it in the country. Same idea, but in the country. Boom, bango, hit. Steve Jobs is a great idea. Hey, I got an idea. See how this phone is like this? Let's make it like the same thing, but bigger. Genius, Steve Jobs. It's like saying that the people at Gillette are genius innovators. Listen, Bob. Hey, you know how we got the double blade now? We no longer just have the single blade rate situations. We got the double blade. Because I got a crazy idea, and I don't know. Maybe this is just wacko. I woke up from a dream. Who knows? I think in one way that we could get an advantage over the competition. Shh, don't tell anybody. 3 blades. That's right. How about we go 3 blades on a stage razor? Huh? Nobody's thought of that. For a long time, it was 1 blade on a stage razor. Then we innovated, and we're like, hey, I got it. Let's do a double blade. Cuts once, cut twice. But then, where do you go from there? There's no place to go, Until, Papa, genius. I got an idea. 3 blades. Boom. Boom. Somebody give this guy a raise. So that's what, it's like to call Steve Jobs an innovative thinker is the same as to call the guy who comes up with the idea of let's produce a show called Sex in the Country a great idea. It's the same as to say that the guy who came up with a 3-bladed safety razor is a great idea. No, it's obvious and stupid. I mean, what's the point of a tablet? It's like to have less of the harms of a phone, but none of the benefits of a laptop. I mean, talk about a stupid middle ground. It's talk about cutting the baby in half. It is caterpillar time. That's true. So this is important, of course, too, is that I can definitely say, hey, that guy's not very strong. He can only lift 50 pounds. And you might not like that fact, but you can't prove it wrong by saying, but Eric, you can't lift 50 pounds. I'm saying, I'm not claiming I can lift 50 pounds. You said that guy's the strongest man in the world or whatever. I point out he can only lift 50 pounds. One way to fail utterly to rebut that is to point out that I can't lift a lot of weight. That doesn't matter. I'm not talking about whether or not I can lift a lot of weight. He had a track record of new products that no one thought they needed. Like what? Like a tablet, phone? I mean, I think innovation is a product of living in a Western technocratic corporate environment which prioritizes competition over cooperation. I mean, like a lot of things in life, people innovate and people commodify those innovations. So when we move too far into metaphor, we risk forgetting that. High typology gifts. I watched a little bit of those videos, but I got distracted by, I think, a desire to start live streaming, and I couldn't remember what I had typed the guy. What did I type the guy? And what did you type him? He was unhappy with my typing, or what? We both typed him INFJ. Okay, so he's INFJ. Why is he complaining about it? I mean, I'm not saying he's complaining about it, but I'm saying, like, I'm sure I tried to do a good job of explaining that, yes, you are an INFJ, and here's why, but I don't really remember the typing session, so I don't know. It's like as soon as I'm done typing somebody, I forget all that typing session. Well, Frederick Allen says, I think the real basis of the system is metaphysics because everything starts in the metaphysical foundation upon which society and stability rests. I mean, it's just not the case in general that most people are not as metaphysical as you and I, Frederick Allen, and most people don't need to predicate their behavior on position statements, affirmations, negations, formalized understandings or beliefs. So, it's a mixed up, topsy-turvy world we live in. And if you've never seen the tapestry of goodness in your heart, then the moisture of tomorrow won't ever fall upon the fields of today. Words to live by and remember. Jason Stokes, you are welcome. My pleasure. Those were great questions. And that's one of the things that ISFPs can offer to the world is the ability to really, and what a great question. Why do I feel ashamed of being a censor? That is such a fantastic question. It's such a great NI title. It makes me get a boner, metaphorically. Okay, just metaphorically. Don't worry. Don't worry, everybody. It's just a metaphorical boner. Am I still going to type, please, Alexis Kingsley? I guess I forgot about Alexis Kingsley. Why do you think I'm ashamed to be a censor? I don't know. That's a very metaphysician statement, Frederick Allen. Everybody operates under a medical framework, whether aware of it or not. It is true that everybody operates according to certain assumptions, but whether or not those assumptions are rendered formally onto some sort of model is a different matter. And just because we can infer an implicit model beneath someone's behavior doesn't mean that they are actually predicating their behavior on it or motivated by it or that they have any link to that model at all. So that's just sort of the metaphysician's bias to assume that because we can place beneath anything an explanatory framework that everybody's predicating something on such a framework, even if they're not aware of it. Now, that's not true. Now, it may be the case that people communicate affirmations and negations with an implicit framework, whether or not they're aware of it. But I wouldn't say that's true of all behaviors. And that is how Frederick Allen and I have conversations. They're very, very fancy. Me and Frederick Allen are going to go over here and have a super fancy conversation. Any other fancy talkers want to be part of our fancy conversation? We're going to use fancy words. I'm going to use the word supervene, so get ready for that. You better look it up right now. Do I keep up with aye? Yeah, I totally love aye. That's the sound I make when I jump off a cliff to go cliff diving into the ocean. By the way, Frederick Allen, I like the way you talk fancy, and I like the way you fancy talk. So, if you were a wet food, it would be Fancy Feast. Well, it's true. All systems exist because they have to exist. Non-existence is impossible, so it is necessary that they are, which is why things are. I mean, existentiality is a status we afford to named objects, usually things with identity rather than just, non-specified in some way, So it's like, this is the problem I run afoul of a lot of times when I'm talking to people about philosophy stuff. They think the question of existentiality is a significant question. Existentiality is something that is presumed when one makes arguments about something. And in fact, it's a matter that's covered specifically in quantification theory and conditional logic. So quantification theory adds two rules of inference to the existing set of rules, one of which is called universal existentiality, and the other one of which says instantiates an instance of something, and the other of which allows you to conclude from that it is the case that that some mya have mya. So in other words, let's say I say there exists some penguins with hats, then you conditionally logic, you'd say there exists at least one instance. At least one instance of a penguin is also an instance of a hat wearer. So the thing is about existentiality is it's been conflated from a necessary consideration in quantifying conditional logic, that is to allow us to use some instead of just all, no, and only. And it's been turned into, people mistake the fact, people forget the fact that existentiality is fundamentally something they have on the legend on the map. So if I have little wavy lines, maybe that means ocean. And people are really concerned about establishing meow about wavy lines. Well, okay, forget about wavy lines. Wavy lines are just wavy lines. Hello, my precious darling Rachel Lapalosa. There she is. Well, my point is, in order for you to meaningfully afford the word any kind of ability to draw distinctions, it needs to have an alternative to that which exists. I would point out that existentiality is how we distinguish between null sets and sets that are not null. It's really a math kind of a thing. I mean, there is a distinction, right? So a null set is null because it lacks an instance of something within it. Now, existence refers to that relationship between sets that have stuff in them and sets that don't have stuff in them, and so forth. And it's easy to get confused about our map stuff for actual territory stuff. This is where philosophers fall into this pit of, I guess you'd call it, pointless dissembling, solipsism, whatever. I don't know. It's important to remember that everything that is defined meaningfully is defined in ways that make it operational. If I have a meaningful definition, I can use it to distinguish meow from meow under certain circumstances. If my definition is not meaningful, I cannot use it to distinguish meow from meow under certain circumstances. So when we talk about existence, if I were to ask somebody to define existence and they were to say, well, everything, there is nothing that doesn't exist. Well, then I'd say, well, then that's not a word that means anything. Conditional logic sounds like well-directed philosophy. I mean, the thing is, conditional logic is not, is both an object of analysis in philosophy and the means of analysis in philosophy. So we can sometimes forget that that it's a means of analysis and focus too much on the fact that it's the object of analysis and mistake it for something that it's like that rock, that actual rock, not the word that I'm saying right now, but some actual rock over there has absolutely nothing to do with your philosophy. It's like, I throw that rock, it hits you in the head, and you go, well, even that action, Eric, is predicated on some model of metaphysics. That rock gives no fucks at all about your metaphysics. And it's not predicated on any such metaphysics. And to say, like, reality itself is predicated on blah, blah, blah. The fuck it is. It's like the hubris. There's too much agency in the world for words to make this set of all reality subsumed by frame X or whatever. Totalizing shit is all bullshit. Totalizing stuff leads to totalitarianism, authoritarianism, and a failure to be honest about the world. But are philosophers really looking for meaning, or is it just a sandbox? Well, I mean, my point is, if it is just a sandbox, it's pointless. Meaningful philosophy doesn't get bogged down in pointless questions because it understands that we can do purposeful work with language. We don't have to just be INTPs sitting around hitting each other with increasingly dense packs of argumentation that remove any normal person or normal life from the conversation entirely. So, like claims like this, right? Existence has an ontological structure to it. Those sentences, that sentence doesn't mean anything. Now, you could, I think I know what he's getting at. I think what he's saying is, as an individual entity, I understand existentiality because I have experienced there being something in my life and then that thing no longer being in my life or something like that, right? We all suffer with the philosophy talk. And, I'm one to talk, right? So I'm as guilty of it as anybody. I've historically been probably more guilty of it than most, but I'm really actively trying to get away from that. If what Frederick Allen means is that existentiality can only be understood through an agent's frame of reference, then I agree with them. If that's a complicated way of saying it, then I would express it as we know shit exists because we lose stuff. On your thumbnail, looks like a pose a male figure skater would do in his choreography. I don't know what my thumbnail looks like. It just looks like TWP with the yellow letters in it, doesn't it? Or are you talking about my one with the lady with the tree? I love that picture. I think that picture is hilarious. One time I went to a store and they had a poster on the wall where there was a ridiculous posing lady who, I don't know, I guess, what's the thumbnail on this stream? I don't even remember. What about physical frames for how the world works, such as bodies of matter have gravity and bend space-time? Well, I mean, that's our explanation of it. Those are the words we use to explain, a good explanation is a good explanation because it validates against the world observationally in multiple ways. And so, okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was channeling my inner figure skater. You're right, Grass Eater. So it's like we have, and what we understand about explanations is that they are correct or not within their frame of reference, that without a criterion to determine adequacy, that it's very difficult to say whether something's good, bad, or otherwise, that we have to have some sort of frame of reference. So, for example, in science, there's a clear distinction between the macro level world and the quantum level world. So Einstein's theory of relativity tests out, verifies, doesn't falsify at the macro level, and it does falsify at the quantum level. And we don't concern ourselves with that because we understand that each of those frames of reference has its own set of criteria for validation, and it's certainly possible and okay to validate in one and not the other. In other words, invalidating in a different frame of reference doesn't invalidate you in all frames of reference. So one of the great things that like being able to think well about this kind of stuff, right? It enables you to predict how absolute values play out. So as I was saying in the video earlier, the difference between ISFP and ESFP. ISFP has as absolute values, their primary absolute values, they've got introverted intuition and they've got extroverted feeling in the 5th slot, plus introverted feeling. Contrast that against the absolute values of an ESFP, extroverted sensing. They've got extroverted thinking, absolute value. Introverted sensing is an absolute value. And so what instead do they have as instrumental values? The truth is just instrumental to them. Doesn't matter other than that. That's NI 4th. Their own authenticity is just instrumental to them. Doesn't matter, right? The how they're perceived by others, just instrumental to an ESFP. That's your 6th slot. In the 8th slot, you've got extroverted intuition, just instrumental. So both the intuitions, authenticity, and social grace are all just instrumental for an ESFP. And if I were right about this, then I would see the following comment from Cloud. All your ideas are untested in reality. Your MBTI and talking sessions are pure talk. Your politics, pure talk, never challenged by material world. So where's the meaning in your ideas? Well, Cloud, I mean, I said this whole shit about the ESFP and ISFP earlier. This is, I mean, it's like you say, you walk up, you stomp in, you put a big pile of confirming evidence right in front of me and say, where's the proof? Oh, you mean that big pile of shit you just brought in? It's a beautiful thing to see exactly what countervalued or anyway instrumental, what it looks like if you are instrumental about the truth, instrumental about authenticity, about your own self, instrumental about how you're perceived, and instrumental about creativity and ideation in general. That all those things are only good because they serve something else. What do you look like? You look exactly like Cloud. It's astonishing how much things make sense when you have the right model, you apply it to whatever and you go bingo, and you apply it to something else, you go bingo. When you have the wrong one, you apply it to something, you go bingo, and you apply it to something else, you go, oh wait, that doesn't work. It's a beautiful thing called intuition. But if nothing about you holds the truth, authenticity, creativity, or perception as anything but instrumental values, then you're just going to end up being a provocateur and not providing any meaningful ideation at all. It's not bad blood. I just have to just slap him back into his chair occasionally. That's all. So let's look at statements like this Frederick Allen makes here for a little bit more good analysis. The system of reality, in order to exist, has to follow rules and structures. So if that is the case, how would we know? What would it look like if we had a system of reality that failed to meet that? Explain to me the mechanism by which that system would cease to be reality or would cease to exist, as say either disappear or retroactively never instantiate, I guess. What's the mechanism by which failing to follow rules and structure necessarily leads to either a lack of existence or a retroactive return to non-existence? Okay, so the point is, you're not making a meaningful statement if you're saying that reality has to follow rules and structure to exist. So, in other words, all you're really saying is, as far as we can tell, perceptually, it seems that the universe adheres to certain rules and structures. In other words, we observe, we observationally note that we cannot seem to make a perpetual motion machine. That something will always stop moving, and then we try to explain why. And when we're really off base, once we come up with a good explanation of why, we think that the explanation comes before the thing. And that's what you're doing, Frederick Allen. You're mistaking the map for the territory. Well, the thing is, Cloud and I have an interesting economy. He gets points every time I bother to pay attention to him. And basically his strategy is to attack other people as long as that's interesting. And when he starts getting bored with that, or people aren't giving him a response, he'll start attacking me. He'll start fairly low and he'll escalate. And eventually he'll be saying, Eric is the stupidest man who's ever lived. Nothing he says has any meaning or value. Everybody should ignore him. He goes all in with just insane nonsense. And then I, at some point, either respond to him or eventually he says, boring, and he leaves. Either way is fine. The thing is, when I do respond to him, does he get juice from that? Yes, he does. And that's okay. Because do I get juice from it? Well, he does have a way of providing excellent examples that allow me to explain why he's wrong. It's like he's wrong in very teachable ways. Like if you wanted to come around, like in the comic strip Goofus and Gallant, right? Goofus is the guy who's always being a good boy, and Gallant's always being a bad boy and making the wrong choices. Well, in the world of logic and ideation, if you wanted there to be a foil character, somebody who's coming along and demonstrating how not to do shit consistently, so that in ways that are really nicely set up to explain off of, you'd hire Cloud. And the nice thing is, it's up to me as to whether I want to engage on a given thing or not. I thought that was interesting because I actually do believe that comment was quite demonstrative of exactly what I said in the video earlier. The things that the ESFP thinks of as instrumental values, and the things the ESFP thinks of as absolute values, it's all right there in that chat thing. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to see what you're saying like play out so obviously. Okay, so Kyra's right. In the world of logic and ideation, there's too much nakedness. That's why I've begun promoting my new agenda, which is let's convert all the nakedness in philosophy, in typology, etc., into nudity. Nudity is a lot less offensive than nakedness. So we'd be well served to convert it all to nudity. Hi, Mayo. Hey guys, is there a community where we can interact outside of our extremes? You can always go to the autonomy rooms, the autonomy room if you want. Look, Talking to Famous People has a room, a public room or whatever, but people can never get into it. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with that. It's some of the light bulb fans and no. You can always hang out here. But be prepared for me to show up at random times and kick you out because I got to do something in there. This is technically my debate room. Like, this is where I go to work with debate people. So if, for example, you're in a live stream like this and you decide, let's say you're running Fox and you're like, I want to talk to Zaylin Black after the live stream's over. Well, then running Fox and Zaylin Black should go to autonomy. There's only 4 spaces in there, so it's not like I'm suggesting this is a good place for a group hangout, but I think there is a room that's open that you can get to, and it allows for 12 people. So you could always go to that one as well. The thing about a 12-person room is if 2 or 3 people go to talk in a 12-person room, they feel like failures, right? Like, this room's empty, this room's dead. If there's 2 or 3 people in a 4-person room, they feel like, we got a slot in here, and there's only one more slot. You know, it's a weird psychology thing, I guess, that happens. So I was suspected by saying, go ahead and use that room if you want to hang out and chat when I'm not using it, that probably people will start going to the autonomy room. And then at some point, when it keeps being full, they'll say, okay, let's go to the other room. How did you do that, Spirit Mayo? That is some magical trick you have there. How do you have different fonts on this? That's very, very impressive. There's not much in the world anymore that really, truly blows my mind. Spirit Mayo's capacity to have a different font in the live chat truly and finally and forever blows my mind. Can you please explain before my mind stays blown forever? What's my relationship with debate? I'm a debate coach, professional debate coach. And I currently am a private coach working with just basically one client who's a debater. But I also work with that family's 5th grade daughter as well. But that's a fairly recent phenomenon. Prior to the last couple of years, I had large squads. Like, I ran my own large squad at Autonomy Debate School. I ran a really large squad at Kudos College of Youth Leadership when we were like the biggest and baddest middle school program in the country. For that, I ran the Ray Academy middle school program, and for a while the high school program. And before that, I was a policy debater in high school. So my relationship with debate is close, I should say. I've also written quite a bit about argumentational theory, what comprises justifications. I have an idea, which is my single best idea of my life, okay? It's a little too hard for me to make myself. And that is, I can't program it, but it basically turns competition flow debate into a card game, a turn-based card game. How do you do that? Jason Stokes can do it too. Where is this magic coming from? What manner of evil magic is this that I'm seeing? Copy paste? Oh, very sneaky, sis. Pretty sneaky, sis. If you like Connect 4 more than your own mother, then you either have a Connect 4 addiction or potentially you hate your mother. I don't know. One of the two. Who was telling me they love Connect 4 more than anything in the world? Was it you, Kyra? You'd sell your soul for another game of Connect 4? That seemed a little extreme to me. It's like, come on, you guys. That's a little extreme. So I'm here in Autonomy if anybody wants to join me. Do you chat by voice or video by chat? If you come into Autonomy and speak to me, your voice will be heard on the live stream, but you will not have your face on it because I'm using the meow, not the meow, which is fortunate because, of course, Sean's here in the nude. Causing echo as well. I'm glad you didn't see, because it was a screen full of schlong right in front of my face before he put some pants on. Anyway, he's He's here. He's queer. He doesn't want any more bears. That's right. He's Sean. Thanks, Spirit Mayo.
All right.
That's not beatboxing. That's the sound of Sean settling into his chair, clearing his throat, and donning his serious hat. Okay, Sean.
I'm here to confirm aspirational fourth slot functions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Zaylen Black, you're welcome to come in here to the autonomy room. Or maybe that's you with the nice looking house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, look, when I start campaigning in earnest after the inauguration of Spirit Mayo, I'm going to attend to a lot of those kind of things. You know, it's something that occupies my thoughts much of the time. The how to go about sort of formally launching, how to go about making it happen, you know, what changes I'm gonna have to make. I think about it all the time. It's one of those things that I have to let my ignoring and I sit with for a long time, which I am, and I feel like I'm taking the right approach to this, that my timetable is right, that my patience and also caution before launching a given course of action here regarding 2024 is right, and that I'm doing a good job of engaging with people who want to talk to me about it heretofore. Right? I mean, like before it happens, I guess that's not, what is the word? There until help me to refine my thinking about it further. Now, Sean, you've had your serious hat on for a couple of minutes now. What kind of serious conversation topic, thought, comment, question, concern, complaint, or whatever would you like to raise in this moment?
Well, as an FE Dom, the last thing I wanted to do was TI. Like the last thing I wanted to do was like no definitions and read like stuff and just like introvert and then be away from people. Like I didn't want to do that at all. Like I wanted to be with everybody and be part of it, be part of the group. Mm-hmm. And I kept getting kicked out and shunned and shoved away.
And how did that make you feel?
Horrible, like absolutely terrible.
That's not a good feeling, is it?
No, it's not. And I'm just not built for that. And this is like, it's the last thing I fucking ever want to do. Like, it gives me no pleasure to know the definition of shit. But I did it. Like, I read the dictionary over and over and over, the encyclopedias over and over and over. It's like, and I didn't have dyslexia. It wasn't to like pure reading. It was like this idea that like, I'm going to understand shit. And I had to teach myself how to learn because like, I had just way inferior teachers. So
well, you know, Sean, both the dictionary and the encyclopedia have some of the most nuanced, well-developed lead characters of any books in the English language.
I didn't even know fiction was a thing until like I was third grade. I just like ran out of shit to read.
It is a thing. If you were still uncertain about it, okay.
Right.
It is a thing.
But the thing is, I think I get it now because like TI, there's just nothing further from FE than TI, and it's kind of like if you can appreciate TI when you're an FE Dom, then you can really appreciate your psyche. It gives you the ability to introspect, it gives you the ability to get into your unconscious, and then like it really lets you learn. It starts letting you like really go somewhere with it.
Mm.
Like at the end of the day, like no matter what I'm learning or understanding stuff, when I get around people, I love it when they interrupt me. I love it when they speak from their heart. I want to know what people are happy about. I want to know your Olaf statement.
Okay, well, I want to speak from my heart right now, Sean. I want to speak from my heart to you, okay? I got something that's important to tell you, all right?
Yeah.
Don't go changing to try and please me. You never let me down before. Don't imagine you're too familiar and I don't see you anymore.
Yeah.
I wouldn't leave you in times of trouble. We never could have come this far. I'll take the good times. I'll take the bad times. Sean, I'll take you just the way you are.
Yeah, man.
Okay, that's That's my new version of "There's Nothing Wrong with You." I gave the same message earlier to Legends Fall.
Okay? I hate that every day, or not every day, but very often when people are like, "How can we use this to improve?" I'm like, as long as you don't think you need to improve. If you think you need to improve, you're fucked. Like if you just enjoy natural growth, then yeah, like that's good. But
yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, it depends what you're trying to do, I guess, to a certain extent. If I were trying to win a gold medal in rowing,
you are so sad you said that.
I would be lying to myself if I said I didn't need to improve. Because I'm not very good at rowing.
You don't need to be.
Well, I certainly would be if I were trying to win a gold medal in rowing. That's what I'm saying. If I were sure that what I wanted to do was win a gold medal in rowing, then I'd have to sit back and be honest with myself.
Yeah, I still think you're fucked up.
Eric, you're going to need to get better at rowing.
Negative.
And then I want Sean there as my inspirational coach. Eric, you are good enough right now with no practice to win as many gold medals as you want to. It's all about your attitude. I like that. It's very optimistic of you. Are feelings, emotions, logic, and rationalizations equally valid at all moments in time? If not, pick 3 and ostracize everyone using the 4th. They know what they did.
Well, he needs to understand the terms.
Well, I guess feelings is SI, emotions is FI.
It's like a quarter of a second, boom, emotion spray in your body. And then how I react to that is going to turn into a feeling. And then that could turn into a mood. And that could turn into a trait. You know? Like, I get these chemicals, I'll respond with what? Like, I'll stiffen up. I'll get that stiff upper lip. I'll be brave. I'll develop my courage or whatever. Or, like, what are you going to do? You know? If you have a frisson because you're, like, French guy, like, whatever you do, it's the same chemical. How are you going to respond to that? What's it going to make you feel?
Right? It's going to make me feel like a champion in your heart.
Because they're more sophisticated than that, right? You know, there's, like, 4 basics. So you're going to do what you're going to do.
Yeah, your meat group, your vegetable group, your starch group, and your food group.
I mean, like serotonin or like oxytocin.
Oh, I like dopamine personally. Hey, Eric, as president, you promise that you will make white supremacy and the KKK illegal? Well, I tell you what, I'm going to do you one better, Spirit Mayo. Instead of making them illegal, I'll make it more obvious that it's embarrassing to advocate those kind of positions. Nobody wants to embarrass themselves, right? People want to be taken seriously as somebody who doesn't incur immediate eye rolls. It's like what's his name said, Oscar Wilde. War will never cease happening as long as it's tragic. It will only cease happening when it becomes ridiculous.
Eric,
yeah, I'd definitely rather be in jail than embarrassed.
I've desired to be embarrassed many times, and if I was quoting Oscar Wilde, I would have let him out. Like, I can't believe you didn't do that. Like, that's crazy. You do that all the time. How did you say it straight face? You're quoting Oscar Wilde.
Because he's the one who said it. I mean, what do you mean? It's like
it was the deepest irony possible, I think. Because you do voices like you do all the time.
I didn't do Oscar Wilde. I didn't do any voice for Oscar Wilde.
I know you did it. That's what I'm saying. You did
oh, okay. Well, what type of Oscar Wilde? I think Oscar Wilde is probably an ENFP, but could be an ENTP. Maybe it's more likely he's an ENTP.
But he was Fuego, you know. You just didn't.
Oh yeah, he was a flamer. I'm not disputing his clear level schlong. Nobody's disputing that.
I say no to that temptation to do that.
What's my policy advocacy regarding white supremacy? I don't have one. The thing is this. Anytime we talk about stuff like white supremacy, racism, or whatever, we manage to divert the meaningful discussion away from what matters. If, in fact, there are some white supremacists who have committed some sort of rights violation, then let's focus on that. If, in fact, there are cops who have shot somebody unfairly, then let's focus on that. The race thing just muddies the question. If, in fact, racism is relevant, then when the KKK guy does his crime, we have to now know whether or not he did it because of racist reasons or because he was really angry because he caught his girlfriend cheating or because he was trying to steal something that he wanted for profit purposes. Or, why do we need to know his mental state? It doesn't matter. It's not relevant to what rights violation occurred. We do need to know whether it's intentional or accidental, depending on the circumstances. Accidental things are afforded, the privilege of being evaluated in a civil frame of reference, whereas intentional rights violations are dealt with as criminal matters. It's what it says. It says Google moderator removes. I don't know why it does that. It has nothing to do with me or anybody else. I shit you not. It says Google moderator removed it. Nobody else is doing that.
I think it's important that we never, ever start making judgments based on what's going on here. Because then there's thought crime and clockwork oranges.
Yeah, you can't police people's head inside people's heads. People have the fundamental right of conscience. Now, Spirit Manual says, as president, do you support the death penalty? No, I do not support the death penalty as anything, regardless. But the president ultimately has almost nothing to do with whether or not there's the death penalty. Like zero to do with that. So
definitely stop it.
Personally, I mean, yeah, you can pardon people, but
that's your position.
But I don't support the death penalty on the grounds that all rule of law should be subject to additional and disinterested scrutiny. And if you put somebody to death, then you are implementing what is purportedly an act justified by rule of law, but in reality, you are ending the jurisdiction of rule of law. You are making it such that rule of law no longer has jurisdiction over this matter. It can't because the guy's dead now. So whatever other legal proceedings go forward on that person's behalf, they are moot from that person's perspective because you can't bring them back to life.
Would it be wrong to say that the death penalty does more damage to those alive
Then what?
than the people that are put to death?
No.
Well, yeah, it's punitive justice. It's shit. It's not cognitive justice. That's why it's costing us all money. It's doing all this.
And note that I didn't object because it's punitive justice. I think that there is room in a complete justice frame, not just for rehabilitative justice, but for retributive justice as well. People who have been victimized want to feel as though equilibrium has been restored by the other person's suffering in some equivalency to the amount of suffering they caused.
But you'd have to prove free will. You have to prove that there was a real crime. Like,
Why? Why do I have to prove free will first?
I'm just saying, because I think that it's not like their choice to do this shit. So like you're getting retribution on the guy, and actually every single person that does the bad thing is just like the clock tower shooter guy with the tumor, and we just don't understand enough about the psyche, enough about the brain to know all the different
So what if the person says
all these things that act against us to make us be crazy, make us to hurt each other, make us to do that. Our natural state is to learn and to care for each other and kumbaya, man. Like when you're not doing that, it's something.
What if I'm going to go with what Joey says? What if the criminal not only confessed but said, "Yeah, I knew it was wrong, but in a fit of pique, I said fuck it and I shot her anyway."
Yeah, obviously it's damaged, man.
So, should he be punished or no?
No, I don't think everyone should just take my belief, right? But that is what I believe. I believe that nobody would do anything nasty ever, and anyone that does is sick. Like something, even me, like something happened. I had like a trauma or like hurt people. That's how I feel every time. I feel if I just heal everything, then I will always be pleasant and joyful and bring good things up. That's what it is.
Wait, Eric, I didn't quite understand your initial logic. So
Regarding what?
That they can't be studied further, or
No, I'm saying, look.
Nice question, Jason.
I'm saying punishment is, when just, is the consequence of a rule of law process. And what I'm saying is that when rule of law dictates that it is just to put a person to death, they not only put the person to death, but they remove from the jurisdiction of the law that individual's case. So I would point out that if we live in a society where we are all subject to rule of law, then there is no instance where somebody can be positioned such that they no longer enjoy the basic protections of rule of law. Putting them to death makes it such that they can no longer argue their case anymore.
That's the difference of society and community. Society is like a privileged state, and then they can remove you from it with punitive justice. If it's community justice, it's community, and you're going to be there always.
Okay, but the thing is, let's say it is the community, and let's say you're talking about, for example, let's say a small town of 500 people. Let's say there's a criminal who comes in from out of town, and he's a mass shooter, and he kills half the population, 250 people. Now, the community is there, right?
Yeah.
Are they responsible for determining what's just for that individual?
I mean, we're going to kill him. It's like, it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. We're going to do it. It's part of the pain. Like, it's not that it's right or wrong. It's like, we'll just do it. Or maybe we won't, but most likely he's going to die. Yeah.
But isn't that, but you're saying you shouldn't, that we should
I don't-
rehabilitate him?
We don't conceive of ourselves as something so great. Like, we are a society. Yay. And then anyone that step outside that rule, we're going to chop you up. We're a community. We make mistakes. We're a living, breathing organism that's like multifaceted with all kinds of different things. Somebody in this community make a mistake. Yeah, it's okay. We make mistakes. As a community, we make mistakes.
So,
you know,
250 dead is a mistake?
I mean, that's, you're doing hyperbolic exaggeration. I just let you go with that, right? It's one person coming. Come on.
No, I'm trying to establish.
Maybe one.
Hold on. Your approach to justice is not unprecedented. I've heard it.
But it's not just justice. It's I'm sorry. Go ahead. But it's the conception of what you're getting from it. Because we follow rule of law for the privilege of being in society that's like held above what is man's even like average potential. It's an above average potential to never break laws of society, in my opinion. You know? Okay.
So Foucault talks about a communitarian justice that includes all the stakeholders. So what that says is, let's say a crime's been committed. Let's get the criminal, let's get the victim, let's get the victim's families and other people impacted, let's get the criminal's family and other people impacted, let's get them all around the table, and let's all reach consensus about what attains maximal justice for everyone. That everyone feels like, you know what, this is fair, and it's not unnecessarily punitive, but it's still fair, blah, 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 blah.
Is it okay? One more thing, just repurpose the community definition as like not accepting of scarcity, but accepting of personal property. Personal property, yes, but not of scarcity. So like common things, whatever. But like, just your clothes, your small things, your wife, like that. That's pretty much it. You don't have like acres of land, let's say, or something like that. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's more community than just this other thing. It's kind of changing the way people think. You know what I mean?
Okay, so anyway, Foucault presents that model of justice that would say, let's include all the stakeholders and reach consensus about what a just outcome is. For example, let's say my teenage son has gotten drunk and decided to joyride in my car and has crashed into your car. Now, that's
where it comes. Mine. And it's not, it's ours.
No, but it's not. Hey, Sean, let me make this clear.
I know, but
let me make this abundantly clear. Okay?
Okay. Yeah.
My car is not yours.
No, I understand that.
It's not ours.
I don't think community justice works in this kind of society. I don't think it works in society. I think it works in community where everything's communal. Like, that's what I think. I don't think it works in our societies. I don't think it works.
So it only works in societies where people who do less steal from people who do more, right?
Basically, just that level of personal property, that it extends into scarce resources, that it extends into privileges. You know, like there are communes. There's still communes in the States now. Really. And it takes that level of letting go of that level of aestheticism to me to have a real community, not society. And then you can have community justice that kind of works.
I mean, what about this community right here? It's empowered and made possible, and it would be impossible without. It is made possible by private property.
I just don't know. I'm just saying, like, for example, I'm saying, yeah, community justice doesn't work. I'll agree with you. I'm just saying, like, I don't think it works in a society.
Wait, hold on. What are you agreeing that doesn't work? I'm not sure I'm agreeing that doesn't work. What are you saying?
No, I'm saying community justice.
Community justice. Okay, fine.
That have limited personal property as much as possible. Like
Alright.
there's a very base personal property, like maybe like not something that's actually worth any money. It's only worth sentimental value, these kind of heirlooms, and then just they have very personal
Like
clothing.
my turd, for example.
They're just
My
they're
turd
really
is
not
community
having
property.
personal
Stop trying to steal my turd, Sean. I'm changing rooms to TWFP1 because people are complaining this one's full. God damn it. Not that. There.
The 3rd of October is a very special day.
God damn it. I'm going to get copyright violated with that shit. I don't even know what that is. Okay. So I'm going to go to this other room now. It's a little place I call Talking with Famous People 1. Okay. So that other people can join. And, Sean obviously has many thoughts. And some of them make sense.
I don't want to pin you on anything, any position to make you look any kind of way. I just am saying that it doesn't work in a society. It only works like
it's fine to try to pin me. There's nothing wrong. I have no problem with being pinned to things. I'm not afraid of defending my positions.
I'm just trying to say what I think of communal justice only works in the community. Like they really have a spirit of community and this kind of
like North Korea.
I mean, you got to have like a esprit de corps, man. Like we're all planting the corn and reaping it, and we're all sharing and everything. And
I don't want to plant corn,
and I have a farm.
But Sean, I don't want to plant corn. You plant corn by yourself if you want to plant corn. I don't want to participate in your corn planting initiative.
You wouldn't be there. Everybody there, they're microdosing every day.
So
they give me hugs.
In order to have your communitarian paradise, you have to drug everybody daily? Is that what you're saying?
It's like a hug, and then it becomes oxytocin, man. It's so good. Every day, microdosing on the human field, man.
Okay, let's let some other voices in the room chime in as well if they want to. Okay, people in the room, please feel free. Somebody who else would like to chime in, go ahead and offer your thoughts as well. Not to in any way reduce the value or importance of Sean's fine thoughts, but I agree that if we keep everybody sufficiently drugged, a happy commune is possible. It's possible, sure. You just have to continually increase the dosage until everybody's absolutely comatose all the time.
I would like to interject a thought.
Go ahead.
Sean, and it's a question.
Thank you for that question.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Go ahead, Jason.
For Sean, actually. Do you think that all people are redeemable?
I don't think anyone did anything to be unredeemable.
Like, for instance...
I don't believe in any blame. I think blamelessness is inherent to what is the human condition. I don't think anyone is blamed for any nasty thing they could possibly have done.
All right, I'll give you an example. My grandmother, she's a very caring woman that would never want to cause harm to anybody. But when she's watching a show and somebody, like, commits an awful act, she will, like, get him in the eye, cut his head off, like, she has no...
He's temporarily insane, yeah.
She has no problem with wanting this person that created a harmful act to receive that harmful...
That's a psychotic episode, man.
I have a question.
Yes.
Isn't it possible that by preventing people from incurring the natural consequences of their bad behavior, that you're doing them a disservice?
I didn't say preventing any consequences. I just said no punitive justice as such. Like, I don't see it that way. I would rather have cognitive justice, something similar to that in a community.
Okay, so let's say there were a corporation that that knew their product was a serious choking hazard that was going to kill little children, and it wasn't until like 50 kids had choked to death that they finally pulled it off the market and insisted it wasn't their fault and fight lawsuits all the way and hire a high-power team of lawyers and get away with it scot-free. That's okay.
I mean, that's why we created punitive damages.
Oh, but wait. You're right. You are right, actually.
That's property, man. Like, that's the point. It's like you have to.
But what about the punitive part?
Penalty, because it's about the almighty dollar.
So punitive's okay as long as it's punitive about people's money.
I'd say that punitive is what we have for the system we have. Like, I think human beings are better served living in small bands and communities and having communal justice than trying to live in societies with personal property and all this corporation.
But look, what you're saying is,
that's how we get these.
that this is how things should be. And I go, but, and you go, well, I'm just saying this is how things should be if everything were different.
Yeah.
I go, okay, well, Sean, but how should things be given that everything's not different?
That means we need to inspire people more. That's
So
it. One of these days.
Okay, but until your inspiring speeches change the world, between now and when your inspiring speeches naturally create the idyllic communist wonderland that you envision, between those two time spots, what ought we to do, given the fact that we're neither at your idyllic communist heaven nor ready to concede even that your inspiring speeches are going to change everybody's hearts and minds? I mean, I think it's unlikely to change mine.
I mean, if we did shaman breathing one time, I think you would see. Like, it's so crazy, man. So good.
So, like, would you say that, like, Hitler isn't to blame for what he did?
Of course not. No human is to blame for anything nasty at all. How can you call this a self? Every single time someone has a narcissistic trait or a BPD trait or a codependent trait, there is a program. That is a program from the fucking hominid. It's the same. It's a hardwired instinct.
It wasn't
What's
Hitler.
subjective?
It was really Goebbels who was responsible.
Safety in numbers. It's nothing individual about it.
Look, it's not his fault, right? He was just the one who,
He was tortured.
I know, he's just the one who pursued power, campaigned for power, attained power, abused power, and
he's not sane.
so
he's not sane. He's not healthy. Is he sane and healthy? No sane and healthy person is doing any evil. Nobody.
So would you say that Hitler's wrongdoing for the society or
Oh,
something?
for sure he did wrong things, but he wasn't healthy and sane. He wasn't like illustrative of what man is. Like he's.
So in your result, in your ideal result, at the end of World War II, we capture Hitler and we put him in a mental hospital instead of treat him as a criminal.
I mean, what is the difference?
Okay, well, what about a guy who chopped off somebody's head because they drew a picture of Muhammad? Is he insane?
Yeah.
Really?
It's like they're just sick. They're just sick, man.
Okay, so the entire country of Egypt advocated strongly to have the filmmaker of a movie they considered insulting to Islam deported to Egypt so that he could be put to death. Is the entire country of Egypt insane?
Anyone that's like doing something nasty is sick. They're not healthy.
Hitler wasn't high on ketamine. He was high on methamphetamine. Big difference. Being high on ketamine, he wouldn't have gotten anything at all accomplished. If he were in the K-hole all of World War II, nothing would have happened.
Voice show you how his PTSD is even physical with him. His metallic voice from his burns from the mustard gas of World War I. How can we even imagine what his PTSD is really like when he's there? And he writes Mein Kampf and does this, So he's got narcissism, he's grandiose, he's writing Mein Kampf, and he's got PTSD, he's been through a lot. It's undeniable that he's got a bad life and been tortured by the world, the hand of cards he was dealt. I'm not asking for his sympathy for what he's done or that, but I'm saying anybody that does something nasty is not sane to me.
But the only real question, Sean, is whether or not someone should be held accountable. That's the question that's being addressed here. You keep going back to the fact that this person or that person shouldn't be held accountable. But that is the natural consequence of bad behavior. When you willfully and wrongly incur harms upon other people, then there is naturally going to be a response that says, we shall extract from you an equivalent cost or whatever,
Right. So but it's like, we just go back, right? Like, just to think of a child, when the child does something, and some parent is a low emotional intelligence, the kid's like 3 years old, does something, say, why did you do that? It's implying agency onto the child that, like, why? They're saying, because that if they did something, they must have chosen to do it. He's asking why you chose to do that.
You're projecting your frame of reference onto everybody. A child like me very much appreciates the question why, because I'm able to explain myself.
You didn't ever have a reason for everything you did, Eric.
Well, I mean, the point is, what it taught me was when I did, just Sean, when I always did have a reason. It's just that Sean, listen to me before you say no. Sean, listen, hold on. Everybody stop. Sean, before you say no,
Okay.
you need to turn off your knowledge and turn on your listen. Okay.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is sometimes my reasons were good reasons. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
for example, I misinterpreted what you said, Mom, as meaning yeah, so I followed your instructions. Sometimes,
sure.
Sean,
At least
I'm not
it's
done and you are not
I would agree
listening.
with
Sean,
you.
you are knowing, not listening. Now, sometimes, in contrast, it was because I was mad. And what I realized at a very young age is that I have a choice. I can allow myself to do things for bad reasons, like being mad, or I can be responsible and do things for good reasons. I won't always be correct when I do things for good reasons, but that there's a massive difference between the two. And that when my parents ask me why I did something, they are doing me a great favor to allow me to explain myself. So when I say you're projecting your experience onto everybody, that's exactly what I mean.
Well, I didn't know my experience. I'm asking you, why were you mad? Why were you mad? Is it your fault that you're mad when you're 3? No, it's not.
So, okay, I'll give you a perfect example. One time, I felt like my parents one of my parents embarrassed me in a restaurant.
That means they did.
Okay, so let's say they did. So
yeah, I mean
okay.
That's what embarrassment is, right?
Sean, listen.
I'm listening.
And when, okay, as you're listening, I want you to additionally try to think instead of no. All right. So, Sean,
I'm listening, Eric. It's just an active listening.
Sean, your active listening, calling your talking over me active listening does not make it in any way, shape, or form any form of listening, active, passive, or otherwise.
I'm not talking over you. I'm not raising.
So, what happened in this incident with my parents? Does it matter to you, or you already know? Do you already know what it means before I tell you what happened? Do you already know what it means before I tell you what happened?
No, I'm just trying to hear what you're saying. I don't know why any syllable out of my mouth means you have to talk your story. It doesn't. It's active listening. That's all. I just am listening to your story, following, and just reaffirming that I'm hearing you to you. In a loop.
Look, just as punching
you in Japan. It's not bullshit, man. I came from Japan. We really do active listening every time. I want to say so 本当にだよ so だよ 本当に I want to do it, but I cannot do it. So I do it in English and it's awkward, and I know that. But it's really how I listen, and I'm really listening to you now. Promise. I'm not trying to talk over you. I just want to listen.
Sean, just to clarify, punching you in the face is not active nonviolence.
It shouldn't be taken like insult. Just somebody.
It's not. Nobody's insulted.
Like that? Why can't I just confirm and hearing?
I'm not insulted. Now listen.
Okay.
So
good.
this circumstance, I was angry at one of my parents for embarrassing me at the restaurant. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You may be correct that my emotions were valid. My response, I was so angry, was to pour my orange juice into my mom's coffee. Now, what did I learn that day? That some behaviors are justified and some behaviors are not. And the difference between justified behaviors and those that are unjustified is whether or not you're making the decision using your feelings.
I don't know if you're.
That's my experience. Am I projecting it onto everybody? Yes, that's the point. You're projecting yours onto everybody.
I'm asking you because I don't know if you really think that. I don't. If you really think that or not, I don't know if that was really a takeaway there because I don't know.
No, I mean it really was my takeaway. Whether it was explicitly so or not, it was one of a series of events that I remember because I remember thinking, see, that's why you don't get emotional, Eric. It's like at least that was the takeaway. That's why you don't ever let your emotions drive you to decision making. You have a few of those mistakes as a young ENTP, and you learn to push aside your emotions when it comes to choosing whether or not to act.
Can I ask? Mm-hmm. It seems like they're using their emotions for decision making. The only thing that's dictating decision is the size. They're bigger than you. That's it.
No, Sean, it's unacceptable for me to do that. Sean, wrong. Totally wrong. Look, my parents may have been a little careless with my emotions in the moment, but they were not willfully embarrassing me. And it's possible that I felt embarrassed with no good cause whatsoever. Regardless, if I'm embarrassed, my legitimate course of recourse, which they would have permitted no problem at all, is discursive. It is not to destroy my mother's drink. Period.
I mean,
That's it. There's no mushiness there.
Or what did she do? What did he do?
I don't know, Sean, but regardless, if I wanted to get justice, I was available. I had a legitimate path to justice available to me, namely discursive. My parents never shut me down when I talked, but if I'm going to do shit like that, I well deserve whatever punishment I got.
I'm not trying to shut you down. You know that, really. Yeah, I'm not.
Did I say that? I'm saying
no, you didn't.
My parents. I'm talking about my parents, Sean.
Yeah, but what
and just shut that shit down. That's a kid who's out of control.
Okay, but when you do that, their overreaction, their emotional intelligence, like, wow.
You have no idea how they reacted.
I mean, because I think that. But I will submit to you, if somebody traumatized a 3-year-old who puts the coffee or orange juice and mix it, then they overreacted.
No, Sean.
I wanna say something.
It's just coffee, man. It's not anything.
I think Sean is trying to ask how your parents reacted, and I think that Sean thinks that your parents reacted potentially.
He doesn't remember. I think
I can tell you exactly how they reacted, Sean, because I'm SI, not NI. And what they did is my dad made me call the waitress over and ask her to replace my mom's coffee.
Yeah.
Okay. And you didn't like doing that?
No, because I'm FE third slot, and absolute value is that I look good at all times.
So it's like
it kind of shamed you.
But I mean, I don't think that's why my dad forced me to do that. He's just trying to make a point. Hey, look, you fucked this shit up. Now you make it right, which is a good lesson.
Okay.
How a parent reacts to their child's behavior can be very important in how they shape their children.
Yeah.
I think that's what Sean is trying to get at.
Well, I also think that Sean's parents were not good parents. And so he's projecting that upon everybody too. My parents were great parents, loving parents. They afforded me plenty of legitimate means of disagreement. So that bullshit shouldn't have stood and didn't stand.
No, see, this is where we disagree then. I mean, I love you as a person for real, but like Jordan Peterson has so much like concealed rage. And he calls his children little monsters, and he was like so greedy to like punish kids.
That's not me.
I know that's not you. I'm saying, but that's why I immediately moved to Jordan Peterson. You know what I'm saying? But it's like people that's very critical of the children or whatever. It's like they don't have to be born, man. You can't.
Your takeaway, Eric, at that young age, your takeaway is that you should never let your emotions lead your decision making. That seems pretty deep for such.
That's too much for 3 years old.
Look, no, my real takeaway was the obvious takeaway, which is there are lines of acceptable behavior that if I'm mad, that's not an acceptable way to express it. That I need to use words.
But what if when you got upset, people were attuned to you, and then like how Gabor?
That's not an acceptable way to get attention. Destroying other people's shit is not acceptable. Period.
Okay, but they destroyed you.
No, they didn't destroy me. No, I had my feelings hurt. There's a difference, Sean.
They proved this. He proved that fetal alcohol syndrome and ADD is the same. Because it's just that the development of the child is
okay, Sean. All right, Sean, you're just talking completely out of your ass.
No, but Mate, really, he's like the
fetal alcohol syndrome and
in the world,
and like, ADD have absolutely nothing to do with each other.
They do. They're the same.
No, they're not.
That's what I'm telling. It's not my word. It's Gabor Mate. Really, I can link you many times. He's like,
okay, look, I just at this point I gotta just mute you. This is ridiculous.
Wait, I've got a question. Okay.
Go ahead.
I've heard people reference it before. I'm not very familiar with it, but it's kind of like saying. Like one of my irks is that I take medicine, gabapentin, and it became a controlled substance all of a sudden. And it's because people who overdose on illegal drugs happen to have gabapentin in their system as well. So my logic is, well, if I drink water and I overdose on drugs, should water then be a controlled substance? Just because something happens at the same, it doesn't mean that it always is, so just because some ADHD might be because of alcohol withdrawal doesn't mean every instance is from that.
Okay, so remembering that my career prior to entering teaching English and finally debate coaching was in special ed. I had a student named Eileen who actually was a victim of fetal alcohol syndrome, whose mother was drunk the whole time that she was pregnant. Fetal alcohol syndrome is an actual syndrome with a real set of symptoms and consequences. It affects cognition such that the person can accurately be called, always in every instance, mentally retarded. So the thing is to say that ADHD and fetal alcohol syndrome are linked at all is to either get one of the two things completely wrong. So let's say a fetal alcohol syndrome person displays qualities that are similar to those of ADHD. That's still not ADHD. That's just the fact that a fetal alcohol syndrome person is wild, chaotic, has poor executive control, and other sort of things that are associated with their overall holistic mental retardation. Huge, massive, fucking insane difference between fetal alcohol syndrome and ADHD. The thing that looks like ADHD in a kid who's got fetal alcohol syndrome is nothing remotely related to ADHD. And it doesn't even look like it, really. If you have any actual experience with the population of people, as I do, you know very well a couple of things. Number one, it is not the case that there's a thing called Asperger's. If you have autism, that's a real thing, and it goes along with mental retardation. If you don't, then you are simply probably an INTJ who's been pathologized with this bullshit term spectrum disorder. And additionally, ADHD is not a real fucking thing. If you are an action type, if you're an ENTP or an ESTP, then you have been pathologized with this stupid fucking term. But at least the benefit of being an ADHD patient is that it means you get to have speed.
Would it be true to say that like Asperger's is more in correlation with like NF and ADD is more in correlation with like?
I mean, Asperger's correlates with FE polar.
Oh.
And ADHD correlates with being an action type. Now, the thing is this. You can give INTPs and INFPs, you can stuff them full of speed. You can shoot a bunch of meth straight into their veins. They still won't get anything purposeful done. Why? Because their problem is not really the kind of overactive action that speed helps. Their problem is a frame of reference that says, I condemn thee getting shit done. And that doesn't change no matter how much speed you pump into them.
So you don't think autism exists on a spectrum, or it can be worse or better?
I mean, I think you can have more severe or less severe cases of autism. The less severe cases of autism are people like Rain Man in the movie Rain Man, people who sometimes have savantish kind of qualities. There was a kid I taught, I don't remember his name. I refer to him as Chinatown Mason, so I can't remember his actual name, because he always sang this song in class, Chinatown Mason. And he then explained how, on Tuesday, he was going to take this bus route to this bus stop, get off on this bus, get out on this bus, go down here, go down to Chinatown and be in Chinatown, and then get back on this bus route and go to this spot and go to this spot and go to this spot, and explain the whole fucking thing in great detail. He was mild autism. He was still mentally retarded. That is to say, if you were to test his intelligence, quote unquote, or just generally give him a general cognitive skills test, he would be beyond the single deficit limitation that normal people have, which is to say we normally all have one polar. Somebody who's mentally retarded, you could think of them as having more than one polar. And an autistic person, he had both an issue with TI and with FE and with, I guess, NI. I don't know. But the thing is, there was something wrong with him. So when I say there's nothing wrong with you, I'm talking to all of you people, everybody. Like when Sean pissed me off, it's not because there's something wrong with him. It's just because he pissed me off. And but there are people that there is something wrong with. They're in special ed, right? There's two kinds of special ed. There's retarded special ed and there's gifted special ed. One of them is a real thing. Some people actually are retarded. There's something wrong with them. The other one is bullshit. Nobody's gifted. What makes you gifted and me not quite gifted? Or what makes me gifted and you not good enough to be gifted? It's just totally arbitrary. You want to talk again, Sean? Okay, I'll unmute you. Yes, I'm unmuting you. I'm mean as fuck. The hell? What? I don't know if I want to unmute you now.
And
I
like,
can hear him.
excuse the metaphor, but I think you know my heart, you know my mind. That
I don't
never intend to anger you, and since you know that I would never intend to anger you, but yet you got angry with me, and that's to me, that's not your fault.
I didn't get angry at
the
you.
Power shooter tumor thing to me.
I didn't get angry at you.
You said you got pissed off.
I got angry.
You getting pissed off is a clock tower shooter situation.
Sean, listen. If I come over to your house,
If
stop. If I come over and you're playing soccer and we're all trying to play soccer, and what I do is I throw a bunch of soccer balls onto the field. At some point, you're gonna be like, okay, you go over there, get away, stop. You're just making it impossible for us to play soccer because you're just throwing an endless series of soccer balls on the field. That doesn't mean I'm condemning you. I'm just like, that's Sean. He likes to throw too many soccer balls onto the field. But at some point, I am going to say, go over there and stop throwing soccer balls onto the field. And that's okay, too.
I mean, but when you say you got pissed off, I don't think you're joking. Like you're really, I thought you.
What's a big deal? Getting pissed off is a 1 second thing. It doesn't matter. It goes away instantly.
Not a big deal. I'm not putting you on trial. I'm saying all these things, all that stuff to me, all of that to me, all of that disharmony to me.
That's not disharmony.
They're too much shit. That's what it is.
That's not disharmony, Sean. This is not disharmony. This is not disharmony.
Huh?
This is not disharmony.
No, I think you're hurt, and that's why you get so angry and then to mute me because like you couldn't even take it anymore. Like and you know that I have no ill intention to you.
Sean, do you actually think I'm hurt?
Well, I mean, you muted me and you got pissed off, and you know I had no ill intent toward you. It's clear. Right?
Why does that make you think I'm hurt?
Your tone.
Maybe I'm just a dick.
Yeah, but I think everyone who's a dick is a hurt person that's hurting people. That's what I really think in my life. I'm serious.
Certainly we can conclude for sure that's not the case. Some people, it's purely they're trying to be efficient and only care about themselves, not because they're hurt, but because they're self-absorbed, right?
I mean, harmony is good too.
I think that we were talking about something that was very resonating with Sean earlier with the orange juice situation, and I think because he didn't get to finish his thoughts, he's in a state of dissonance.
Me?
Did you have very reactive parents?
No, I feel attuned to the group. I don't think I'm in dissonance. Like I feel in tune with people here. I mean, what I'm saying is that situation we're getting like a snapshot, right? I think he's getting unfairly critiqued.
You're putting a lot of meaning onto that story that I didn't put there.
Well, okay, I'd say any hypothetical child, like getting.
But I'm not a hypothetical child. I'm an actual child with an actual situation.
Yeah, well, an actual 3-year-old that gets put into shame because their parents are not in tune and understanding the shame and how much that's putting their child through, then I would submit those parents are not being well when they're done.
And I go back to my original point. You're projecting your experience onto everybody. Most parents, good parents. Not my
experience, though. I didn't get that good experience.
There's
books, there's other ideas in the world, even like the Brahmins that would, until the child's 4 years old, every night they wrap up with the woman, the mother, father, all just hold them, just to give them all the good feelings that they need. And it's like passed down. I mean, yeah, some people take it to different degrees. Like Filipinos, it's very common. They sleep in bed till they're 10 years old, still sleep in bed with parents. Like everybody's got different ideas. I'm not saying one idea over anything. I'm not trying to project mine. Certainly not mine. I didn't get it good. But what I'm saying is that one doesn't seem good for anyone when we expect a 3-year-old to have such a sophisticated control over their own anger and wouldn't pour some juice into a cup or something, and then also teach them a lesson. I think it's because they're just bigger than you, or they're concerned their image of their child or something. There's no reason for them to freak out.
So is it ever? First of all, there was nothing.
Didn't freak out. They were just trying to teach
there was
him
nothing.
Consequences. And if you let a child run amok, they never learn any lessons. They think
they do.
That everything that they do, whether right or wrong, is okay.
They
don't learn how to interface with the world.
You're strongly assuming that my parents dealt with the situation badly, were responsible for my embarrassment in the first place, and then freaked out when I did that. Nothing in my story suggested any of that. Hold on. Nothing in my story suggested any of that, which is why I'm saying you're projecting something of your own, maybe not your experience, but something onto me, because I didn't say any of that shit.
No, I'm not. I'm saying if I would notice my child to be embarrassed before they even could pick up a cup. And if I failed to notice them being embarrassed and pick up the cup, and then I notice they're embarrassed, I'm gonna find out what embarrassed them and get to that and investigate those feelings and validate those feelings.
Not every
think
parent
that's
is capable
superior
of that.
to condemning them for behavior that came because they had feelings that they couldn't
I agree
control.
with whoever just said what they just said. That not every parent's capable of that.
Why not?
There's also, again, though, hold on.
So there's a difference between being capable and knowing how. Being able to not react is a very challenging. I think it has something to do with patience. And
here is a perfect example. My kids, I am very unreactive. I am a pushover. I am not a disciplinarian in the least.
Yeah.
My kids got away with murder. I would tell them to go clean their room, or I was going to throw away their toys because I was tired of the mess. They would go into their rooms with trash bags and throw away their own toys because they didn't have an appreciation of the things that they had. And they were also trying to get a reaction out of me. Children, sometimes they need to see you get upset. They need to see you get sad.
They need a tune. They need a tune. They need it always. They need it 24/7.
Okay, hold on, guys. Can I interject here? Can I interject something? There's an assumption, and hold on. There's an assumption of what's being said here that because my parents set a appropriate boundary, that then they did not engage with me about some conversation about why I had done that, my emotions or whatever, after the fact. I don't remember what happened really after that meal. I remember where we were sitting. I remember the restaurant. I remember exactly, I remember the moment. I remember being told I had to go tell the waitress to get her on a new cup of coffee. But beyond that, I don't remember anything about it. But it's quite likely that my ISFJ mom did have that conversation with me. Of course, it wasn't particularly memorable to me because of my cognitive function stack. I don't have the same inherent value for protecting everyone's feelings all the time that you do. And that's okay too.
You said that was an appropriate boundary. It sounds like it was an appropriate consequence. And the difference between consequences and punishment, from my understanding, is that consequences are meant to teach and punishment is meant to hurt. At least that's what when
right. I think it is very possible for parents to intercede such that they prevent natural consequences from engaging their children in ways that are beneficial. Like if in fact I did I did something bad and my parents intervened to help me get away with it, that's not helping me, So it's like there's lots of circumstances in which a child is looking to have guidance regarding where the boundaries are. And they will push them for some reason or another in one direction or another. And it's been very well established in psychological literature anyway, that the best kind of parent is authoritative. They're neither authoritarian nor too lenient. I would like to think that I was a fairly authoritative parent, but most people would have called me very lenient. In other words, I had very little, almost no bossing my child around, almost no you must anything. It was all trying to reach agreement, right? But my parents had the same approach with me. And sometimes children are too caught up in their worldview to recognize what they're doing as wrong. And there needs to be they need to be said, like the time I went in the kitchen one time after a long habit, I was probably 12 or 13 years old, of leaving my dish in the sink rather than cleaning it off myself and putting it in the dishwasher. And I came in one time and my sink was in the sink. My dish was in the sink. My dad was looking at it and he said, "Eric, do not want to clean after your fucking dishes." Like, oh, super angry. And, I never left the dishes in the sink again. Now, was he wrong to be that mad about it? No, he wasn't. Why? Because I had burdened him with my mess time and time and time again. And in fact,
You're
it
12.
specifically was I wouldn't eat. The reason was I left cereal in the sink without putting water in it, so it got super stuck to the sides.
Were you going to school when you were 12?
Of course, I was going to school.
Yeah, and you're going to school in this society, right? Where it's like, basically daycare, so it's like 9-hour days like that, and where your whole life feels like a test all the time, and you feel like you're trying to do that. And what's your greatest fear? That they would just get rid of you. And so to prey upon that,
That never occurred to me, Sean. No, I never felt unloved.
It doesn't have to. But it's still an effective weapon. That's like they're just this fulcrum, this lever. Like we could hate you and we could get rid of you if you
look. My dad could have dealt with that in a million ways. Okay, all of them worse than the one he did. What happened instead of him trying to deal with it consciously and willfully is he allowed the natural consequence to occur. I happened to walk in while he was scrubbing away at cereal that I had left stick to the side of the bowl, and he naturally expressed his honest anger. And that helped me realize, oh shit, I've been burdening him with this. It's understandable that he's angry. And that when I take this kind of careless, irresponsible action, that I will incur naturally occurring anger. And that's appropriate. And if he were to lie to me and pretend like it was okay, he wouldn't be helping me or anybody else.
When you bring Delilah home and you're like 2 weeks, you're holding her and she spit up on you, you get anger because on her shirt? No way. It's the same.
That's so not the same, Sean. Oh my God. Oh my God. That is not the same at all.
You're doing this on purpose just to hurt him. He wouldn't.
I can't take the forced SWAT TI anymore. It's just
sometimes
I just can't take
words aren't enough. Sometimes kids need a little bit of reaction out of their parents to know the gravity of what's going on.
If you're in tune with me, and I love you. That's it. If you're in tune with me,
okay, I can't take it anymore. I just can't take that anymore. I'm out of that room. I'm out of that engagement entirely. That is boy, yeah, ENFJ. It's like that's an example of language being used for totally different purposes, right? So I'm trying to use it to nail down certain statuses that are correct, and he's trying to use it to as a pry bar to pry up every status that's purposeful, and I just couldn't take it anymore. Like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Ay. What was that last thing he said that caused me to just leave the room? I just couldn't take it. It was one of the more insane things I've ever heard. Oh, he's a real person. He's a good guy. He's a veteran of the military, and oh yeah, the spit up thing, right? Same thing. Like screaming at a newborn baby for spitting up is the same thing as getting really mad at your adolescent son for leaving cereal bowls in the sink without even putting water in it. Yeah, like, son, hey, son. Hi, this is your dad, Eric, and I just want to let you know it would mean so much to me if you would not leave your dishes in the sink. I mean, that might work, I guess, but I appreciated his approach, right? It was quick and dirty, like a Band-Aid ripped off. Oh, shit. That's one of those things that pisses off Dad. Dad's easy squeezy until he's not, but he expects everybody to, respect his shit and respect stuff. It's like, he told me when I first came to live here, son, you need to police your area in the bathroom because I was leaving like soap wrappers and stuff around. It's a perfect expression for an ESTJ. Police your area. But of course, I understand where Sean's coming from. As far as I can tell, having talked to him, he did not have parents who were very loving and who could be trusted to have judgment about whether or not a given response is appropriate. Like, I love my daughter very much. I never wanted to get angry at her. I never wanted to punish her. In fact, I don't remember really actually formally punishing her ever, because being an ENTP means that I understood Delilah. She's an ESTP. I understood two things about her more than anything else: that no TE frame incentive disincentive is going to work. If I say, if you get straight A's this quarter, we'll give you this, never going to work. Why? Way too long time frame, way too TE, requires way too much consistency across time, and that just runs afoul of the native opportunism of the action types, who want to be able to pivot on a dime and not have to stick through the same plan forever. Now, with ESTPs, they're a little bit better at following through on shit that's not novel than ENTPs are, but they still are fundamentally, they don't want to sacrifice their capacity to be opportunistic. If some opportunity presents itself, they want to be able to jump at it, understandably. So I always got, additionally, that I never really needed to punish Delilah at all. That the biggest punishment for her was the FE problems that our conflict had, which is the same with me. Being FE third means if you're not liking me and appreciating me right now and valuing me a lot, then that's all the punishment I need, really. You know, I am out of favor. I have been, what's the word? Ostracized in some fashion is the greatest punishment an FE third person can face. So I just always had to just chat with Delilah. We talk about things. We come to consensus. She was reasonable. I didn't have to worry about her feelings interfering with her ability to, or desire to, determine what the best course was logically and rationally and reasonably. That fairness was more important than anyone's feelings in the moment, because fairness cared about people's feelings over the long haul. And that's the thing that people who are in favor of only rehabilitative justice with no retributive justice don't seem to get, is that the victim continues to be victimized by the victimizer getting away with it. There has to be some sort of retribution to attain an equilibrium, fairness. Otherwise, the reality is the injustice persists. As the rape victim, for example, watches the rapist will go to Starbucks every morning, get his cup of coffee, whistle, smile, whatever, enjoy his life, while meanwhile she's carrying around the trauma of his bad act indefinitely. So that's why we need things like retributive justice to make sure that the victim doesn't continue being victimized indefinitely by the injustice of the victimizer getting away with it. Okay, cool. Running Fox is going? Yeah, let's talk smack about Running Fox while she's in the whereby room. Running Fox is always running. Don't you hate how she runs so much? Foxes are so much worse than dogs and cats. Do I believe in an eye for an eye? No. I think that civilization is the process of applying appropriate kinds of rule of law to assure that that equilibrium is restored without resorting to things that are fundamentally evil in the way that criminals do. So in other words, you've got to be willing to use force without being consumed by that willingness. If somebody's torturing somebody and you catch them, should we torture them in response? No, because torture is barbaric and we're civilized people. Should we punish them in ways that deny them the opportunity to enjoy life normally because of what they've done? Yes. And exactly what comprises a legitimate or a excessive punishment, that depends on who you ask and when you ask and so forth. I think by and large, the United States has punishments that are disproportionately large to the crimes. And I would argue that if we were to have a penal code that more matched up with actual justice, that the penalties would more link to the clarity of the moral violation. So, for example, penalties for drug crimes Well, I mean, it shouldn't be drug crimes, but let's say something that maybe ought to be criminal. Penalties for vandalism should be substantially lower than penalties for armed robbery. That we should have a system where the guy in the story I told earlier who hit the guy with the squeegee and shot him with a pepper spray and got charged with assault with a deadly weapon and felony assault with a tear gas weapon, that kind of shit doesn't happen, right? That's injustice incarnate, where you've got an actual crime of simple assault that should be punished very lightly, if at all, because this guy's just trying to go home from work. He's being harassed by these two stupid drunk kids who had no business going up and harassing this guy. They're preventing him from backing out of his car, and he uses a minimum amount of force, considering all things considered. I mean, it's possible that he could have used no force, and that might have been preferable, but he did no lasting damage to anybody, no harm, no foul kind of a thing. So you got to look at a situation like that as a couple of realities. Number one, society has a responsibility to be nuanced to some extent. So while a principled approach to that case would have found that guy guilty of simple assault because technically he was, a meta-rationalist principled approach would say this is a situation that's best served by not finding this person guilty of anything. Because additionally, there's the much bigger problem that was revealed there is that this guy was charged with enough crime to put him in jail for decades, potentially, even though he did nothing really, except just maybe simple assault. That's very concerning to know that our rule of law allows prosecutors to overcharge somebody so dramatically in order to try to force them to not exercise their right to a jury trial. The biggest problem with the U.S. criminal justice system is that prosecutors are too empowered to pressure defendants into not exercising their right to a jury trial. If we could simply change that, all the other injustices would go away. Well. It's time for a bong rip, I think. And I will take one right now. I know I've already asked, but on the chance that you might humor it, what is it you think about Asperger's? As I said earlier in this stream, I think that Asperger's is bullshit. That there is something called autism, and you can tell when it's actually autism because it's accompanied by actual mental retardation of some kind. Now, Asperger's instead says, hey, you know what? INTJs kind of act a lot like autistic people. Maybe it's all part of the same spectrum. Except here's the deal. FE polar is one of the more visible polars to other people. People are likely to say about an INTJ, what's wrong with that person? It's like they don't get social cues. They're kind of robotic. But please understand that Asperger's is just ontological violence committed by FE types against INTJs and sometimes ISTJs. Similarly, ADHD is ontological violence committed against executive function types like TE types against NTPs and STPs, especially ESTPs. It's like there's nothing wrong with me. I don't have an executive function disorder, but TE types will say I do. That's what ADHD is. I have a disorder because I fail to follow through on plans well enough. I'm too impulsive. Of course, what they're not understanding is that in order to be creative and ideational and focusing and prioritizing on valuing novelty and especially things that are ideal, intellectually sustainable via logical critique and stuff, by doing that, by focusing on that all the time, creativity and shit, that I'm naturally going to have to sacrifice the consistent follow through on any single idea. After all, if I'm spending all my time coming up with lots of ideas, I'll have plenty of good ones, and the impulse to follow through on each good one will be there. But I'll probably end up starting a bunch of things and not finishing many of them, but still finishing some. Is that an executive function disorder? No, that's called being an ENTP. it's an alternative configuration to a TE configuration. There's nothing wrong with it. It produces things that potentially are way more ingenious than something a TE person produces, but it also has a lot of false starts and duds. It's trial and error. It's hit and miss. It violates the core principles of TE, which say things like, if you don't have time to do it right the first time, how are you ever going to have time to fix it? It's just imposing their stupid TE frame on everybody, right? Or what's another TE thing? Right tool for the right job. Well, how am I ever going to have fun with this if I get the right tool? I'm busy trying to hammer in this nail with a screwdriver. Don't go away. Stop bugging me. You know, fuck you, TE. And the problem is parents get their kids diagnosed for shit because it has concrete measurable advantages. My daughter, much to my dismay and disgust, has elected to use her ADHD diagnosis to get extra time on tests. Okay? Now keep in mind, she's already TI polar, so she's faster than her classmates in these tests anyway, naturally. Okay? Step 2, she normally doesn't take her Adderall, but she does on test days. So she's already supercharged her intellect with these performance-enhancing drugs. And did I say polar? I meant to say tool. My bad if I said polar. I meant to say tool. She's TI tool, so she's already faster than everybody else normally in general anyway. Then she takes performance-enhancing Adderall, and then she says, "Oh, I've got something wrong with me. I need extra time on the test." It's like, Delilah. That's proof right there you're an ESTP. An ENTP probably wouldn't do that. Innovative people lie at the bottom and the very top of highly complex hierarchical structures. Well, the reason the title of this video is what it is because I was watching a video by David Attenborough about meerkats. And they did an interesting study that said, that showed that when they put a scorpion inside of a Tupperware container, and you could see the scorpion, the Tupperware container is translucent, it's got little holes. The meerkat can even reach in and touch the scorpion with its claw. But the meerkat can't get the scorpion unless he figures out how to slide the lid over to open up a space so they can reach in and get the scorpion, okay? Now, it turns out after they studied the meerkats for quite some time with this, that the types that were most likely to be, because most of the meerkats couldn't solve this problem, but some of them could. And which ones could? Well, they were the low-ranking males. My whole point in bringing this title up was to show the fact that there's a presumption here amongst sort of wildlife biologists, or whatever you want to call them, that the reason why the low-ranking males showed more innovation is because they needed to. That, in fact, they had less access to food because they were low-ranking, and so if they didn't innovate, they'd be hungry. My point is that presumption, that interpretation and that presumption is never questioned at any point during the video is possibly not right. But there is another angle to explain it. That the reason that they are low-ranking males is because they are innovative. That innovation correlates weakly or infrequently with high rank. Now, I would largely agree with what you're saying here, which is that while it is true that being innovative correlates better with low rank than it does with high rank, simply because you're less focused on any sort of singularity or whatever. That when you hit, you're playing long shots when you're innovative. You're playing long shots. If one of them hits, then you're golden. So if you're a meerkat and you don't just figure out how to get the scorpion out of the Tupperware container for yourself, but let's say you figure out a way to crack open ant hills, which gives access to a nearly infinite supply of desirable ants to your entire tribe of meerkats, well, then if the society of meerkats is like the society of human beings, then that person will go to very high rank very quickly because they've provided them, the group as a whole, so much utility that it's generated a lot of beholdens or wealth on their behalf. That's how humans would deal with it. Whether meerkats actually deal with that or not, I don't know. No, the lower ranked males needed to in order to gather resources because they were incels and wanted to see some titties. That's a good explanation too of them place 48. That's a good explanation. Joey says, I used Adderall for a while. It makes me bipolar, not good, insane highs and lows. I would suggest that you might be an FI type then, Joey, because I do know that people who have FI in the front stack or anywhere other than polar report that speed ups and downs cause a lot of challenging emotionality kind of things. For me, I do notice that I get more emotional when I'm at the end of a bottle, but it's not a big deal. It's not like I'm sad. It's just like this commercial makes me cry, that whatever makes me cry, you know. And by and large, the consequences of kicking, because I basically go onto it once a month and kick once a month, you know. The consequences of me kicking it are all experienced in SI. I sleep a lot, I eat a lot, I get on the couch and say right. I watch, comfortable, familiar television or whatever, but I sort of disagree with that example because in that example, they would exploit the low value male and he would still be low value. The system must be complex enough where they can't just exploit him. Okay, I agree with you, in the sense that that's why I say if meerkat society were like human society, and of course, the original idea of protecting the innovators was expressed as copyright / patent / trademark stuff, right? Like, so, it's in the Constitution that the Congress has authority over preserving and keeping fertile the field of innovation by issuing patents and copyrights. That's a system that's built into the Constitution because the Constitution was written by a bunch of intuitives, or written by an intuitive primarily, Thomas Jefferson, but with the input and such of largely other intuitives. The United States of America is an odd beginning point because it is the case that the United States of America, the founding fathers, quote unquote, were a bunch of largely alpha quadra valuing intellectuals, NTPs, and to the extent that it wasn't NTPs, you're looking at probably some STPs and NFJs in there in the mix. There's a lot of TI valuing in the U.S. Constitution, and a fair amount of FI valuing as well. It's all individualistic, and additionally, it's incredibly intelligent in its establishing primarily the frame rather than primarily the case level stuff. It's so smart, the way they approached it. Was it perfect? Could it really do what it hoped to do? No, it's gradually been dissolving for the last couple hundred years. But the point is, it's a very unusual. Can't think of any other nation that I can clearly say was founded by the kind of people who were qualified to found a nation. NTPs, NFJs, STPs, maybe a couple of NTJs to help work out the details. George Washington, probably an STP. I think Biden's an ESFJ, Sean's an ENFJ. Of course, the thing is, to a certain extent, I feel bad. Like, Sean obviously felt hurt by my silencing him, but also, I really like communication to be purposeful. And I like it to resolve things where we go, yep, we agree, this is correct. Or, yep, we agree, this is incorrect, or whatever. And when my attempts to direct things towards purposeful outcomes produce divergence that moves us away from purposeful outcomes consistently, it can be very frustrating for me. Chris Chapman says, I think Biden is bipolar. Even when he had it with him, he seemed to talk like NI. Well, you might be right. I haven't really thought about him very much, really. When I say I think Biden might be ESFJ, it's totally based on affect, not thinking about his functions at all. So could be totally wrong. Sean debates from his idealism. That's great and fine. But the problem is he's making claims about how things ought to be in general, but then conceding that they only ought to be that way if things were different than they are, but then refusing to actually say how they ought to be given that things are as they are. So that's the thing that's frustrating is even if I were to totally agree that in an ideal world, Sean's vision would be best, we're not in that world, so why make general statements as though we were, you know? Legends Fall says, whatever Sean was doing was making me want to punch a puppy. What Sean was doing was rendering our workspace into a complete fucking mess. Okay. He was saying, blah, now try to TI. And it's just like, okay, I'm trying to get shit done here. You're cluttering my TI workspace with a bunch of NI, things that are related but not directly relevant or responsive, So, and yet nevertheless kind of seeking to find consensus when what we need to find is agreement on which person is wrong. It's frustrating. But that's just, look, everybody, no, I see you, Peter Denchichi. Everybody has their moments too. The other thing is, I don't think anybody should try to define Sean as somehow an example of his approach to conversation tonight. Everybody's growing, everybody's trying to refine their affect, their way of being, and that includes Sean. So there's no condemnation in a moment's being fed up. I fear that Sean thinks there is condemnation, and I don't mean to condemn him at all. And he's welcome here, well loved around here, and just because I get frustrated with somebody doesn't mean I'm going to abandon them. Okay. So it's like, if people have attachment issues, then they tend to think that every moment of annoyance is equivalent to banning. Like, I'm done with you. You are not good enough anymore. You can fuck up a million times and still be good enough for me. That's how I was raised. That's how I raised my daughter. It's sort of a fundamental rule of family. You can fuck up a million times and you'll still be good enough for me. You'll still be loved and valued by me. That's how a good family raises a child, so that they understand this unavoidably, so that I don't ever have to worry that because I fucked up and you're mad that it means you don't love me anymore. The thing is, it's something my mom and dad reassured me of many times and said explicitly many times. Look, sometimes we get mad at you and sometimes you do things you shouldn't do, but it doesn't change the fact that we love you very much, and nothing that will ever change that, and you'll always be precious. I had the same message to my daughter. When you grow up with that message repeated again and again, that I will always love you even when you make me mad, I still love you just the same, that I'll always be here for you. You never have to worry about me turning you away. that you are more precious to me than my expectations about you are precious to me. When that fundamental message is conveyed to a child throughout their childhood, they are not worried about attachment issues. They don't have any attachment disorder. They're not concerned that people are going to abandon them. And, it's like Delilah knows that she's always safe as long as I'm, in any sense, able to provide security for her. Because it doesn't matter what she's done or what's happened or whatever, she's always welcome to stay here with me wherever I am and pay nothing and eat food and whatever. Always, forever. She can always come home, That's real family. Of course, I have a very small family. It's just my parents, me, my daughter, as far as blood goes, and my dad's sister that's alive. It's pretty tight family in the sense that we are always loyal to each other, and we include people into the family when they come by a relationship. So my relationship partner, Delilah's relationship partner, are always family members for as long as they're with us. But it doesn't matter how much my parents love my new girlfriend. If I say, okay, well, I have to break up with Matt, they go, okay, you're welcome here. And they're no longer cool with her, because family first. Blood's thicker than bullshit, I have that deeply embedded in me for being a member of this family. It's an FI truth that I have been blessed to have had infused into me by how I was raised and by things I've learned throughout my having made lots of mistakes. You come to learn what's really important, what's really precious. It's difficult for an ENTP to learn those things. It's difficult for an ESTP to learn. It takes a long ass time. But eventually you start to recognize that the moister the tenders, the sweeter the juice. You know what I'm saying? Once you go transracial, you never give up facials. That's the expression, I think. Hi, David Sanderson.
Hello.
You got to wonder where the name Sanderson comes from. One would imagine that at some point back in the past, you had a relative whose job it was to go get sand and bring it back over here. And he was known as the Sander. And then at some point, his son followed in his footsteps. And people would say, is that Sander? And they go, no, that's Sander's son. And then that's how your last name came to be. And that's why you're Sanderson. Do you have still within you a desire to touch sand?
I don't know.
A vestigial tail of sorts?
I mean, we used to go to the beach a lot, but
coincidence? I don't think so.
it's a fair point.
Okay, but Skygear has another interpretation that might also be true. He points out that a sander might be more like a person who uses sandpaper, So in that regard, instead of your relative being somebody who brought sand, they might have been somebody who made wood smooth. So you could be, your last name could also be wood smoother offspring. Would you prefer if that were your last name?
I don't know.
It would be more gender neutral.
Yeah.
I like my women like I like my titles. Gender neutral. I don't need no girl. I need a penis attendant, right? She's not a stewardess. It's a flight attendant. You see what I'm saying? Trying to eliminate gendered language from my vocabulary.
Okay.
from now on, instead of saying, I'm totally going to hump that shit, I'm going to say, I'm totally going to hump that genderless shit. Just to clarify that I'm not talking about her womanhood that I'm going to hump, just her vagina. I'm woke. I guess when people say, what's the number one adjective you use to describe Eric? The most common answer is woke. On a scale of 1 to woke, where 10 is most woke, how woke are you, David Sanderson?
From 1 to woke?
Yeah, from 1 to woke.
Woke, I think.
Joey asked.
Is it?
Sorry, go ahead.
Is it like a binary distribution, or is it like a sliding scale, or is that?
Well, for you, given what you look like, your scale goes from racist to self-hating. So if you want to avoid racist, you got to be super self-hating. And then Joey says, Eric, have you had any bisexual encounters? Well, not as anything other than, like, when I was like 12 years old or something, I guess I kind of got molested by this older boy. I guess that's what you'd call it now. But at the time, it was just like, what the fuck, dude? You know, it's like, I don't know. I didn't think much about it, I guess. It was just I was kind of embarrassed about it. I guess you'd call that maybe that. But, I mean, that's the only one I could think of that would qualify as anything like that. I always, when I was older and I started thinking back about that, I was like, oh, that was weird. I mean, the older boy was like, hey, look, touch this, like that kind of shit, It was, I mean, it's not like I got raped or whatever. I fairly shortly said, I don't like this. I went away, but yeah, I did. Garmin's pound. Yeah. I was sort of pressured into it, I guess. And then I was like, I don't like this. And I went away. And I wasn't like chased after or tackled and raped or anything like that. So, I don't know what to call that, what happened to me. I'm not sure how to refer to that. Okay. Was I molested? Well, not really, I guess. No, I'm just saying that it wasn't. It didn't end up traumatizing particularly. It just ended up being like what was that? I don't like that. I feel like that guy was up to no good or something. I didn't fully understand. I don't know how old I was, 11, 12, 10 maybe. I'm not sure. No, it wasn't a pastor. It was an older boy. He was like 5 years older than me. In the neighborhood, I never told anybody about it.
Yeah, that's.
So, I don't know. Is that a bisexual experience? Kind of, I guess. I don't feel like now as an adult, I realize, oh my God, this happened to me. I'm so traumatized. I don't feel any of that at all. I was just like, well, that happened. Whatever.
Yeah.
So what? I touched a penis. I touch my own penis all the time. Well, not all the time, but very frequently.
I don't know if that's equivalent.
You mean?
But I guess it seems that way from purely like reality level perspective.
I like you mad bros comment. Why didn't you tell anyone you were homophobic? In other words, if you weren't such a bigot, you would have sucked his dick, Eric. Come on now. Hilarious. Grass Eater, do you know about intuitives having a reputation for not showering? It is true that I'm not a frequent showerer. I shower when I feel sticky or like smelly or whatever, or before I'm going to have sexual intercourse. But even then, I only shower necessarily the bottom half. I don't necessarily shower the top half, depending on how what's the word, impatient I am to get down to business, I guess.
I have a question. How does SI manifest in like NI-DOM? So is like, if I'm feeling thirsty and I want a bottle of water, is that SI or is that something else?
That's SI.
Oh. So it's like mostly kind of, but not really unconscious. It's like
For
you kind of feel
you,
a certain way. and
for
you
you,
want
it's
to, like,
mostly unconscious.
yeah.
I've seen Rachel try to figure out things that you should just know with your SI. Figure out things like whether or not she has to go to the bathroom on how long ago it was she last went to the bathroom, rather than just feeling how badly she has to go to the bathroom. Things like that occasionally will happen.
Right.
It's weird stuff. In general, the NI-DOM means that they there's this tarot card I pulled for her the other day that shows this king sitting on a throne, and then there's all these servants who are chained going up and down these stairs in front of them. I think of that being a symbol of the NI-DOM's relationship with SI, namely, even when it's something that their personal experience is most informative about, they don't feel comfortable that they know it really until they understand it as representative of some universal set. So, Rachel's not really convinced that she's compatible with me until she can explain why typologically, astrologically, or some other way. She doesn't have a lot of faith in her experience in that regard.
Interesting. Yeah, I would think that INTJs probably have slightly stronger SI just because they're more physical, I guess. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, that would make sense. I think they have their SI is probably going to, well, like, one thing that SI does is it keeps track of ideas and stuff. So INFJ and INTJ are going to keep track of different kinds of ideas. That's part of it. As far as the physicality goes, the sleeping, eating, drinking, stuff like that, I would suspect that there might be a slight improvement in INTJ over INFJ, simply because, as you said, with the TE tool function, they're naturally more comfortable with the physicality. But I suspect that their relationship with that end of things is largely equivalent, except where the endurance of the individual's SI and such is relevant to a TE approach to something.
So where would SI be relevant to like an FE approach?
Well, an ISFJ is always going to remember your birthday. An ISFJ is always going to keep in touch periodically. They're not going to let a relationship die because of a lack of contact. And they will value people who they've had in their life for a long time more the longer they've had them in their life. So there's a link between FI and SI for sure that I don't really fully intuitively feel comfortable explaining or that I really get because of my polar FI. But it is the case that for me, SI functions as almost a replacement for FI. I try to explain this to Rachel sometimes. Rachel can sometimes have fears about whether she can really trust me as a long-term partner. That what if I actually do become super successful, and then there's these other chicks who I could get that are higher reproductive currency value than her or something like that. I try to always explain to her, I'm an SI person first and foremost. When it comes to stuff like that, I don't really have FI, so I rely on my SI, which means the more invested I am into a person, the more time I've spent with the person, the less likely I am to want to be willing to get rid of them. And in fact, since I am so weak in my FI, I sort of associate comfortable familiarity with love. So Rachel has all of my devotion because she makes my SI experience very easy. It's like there's no conflict between us, and she makes it very easy for me to be emotionally flat, basically. Like to say, I'm not directing any emotion at you right now. I'm not thinking about you at all, Rachel. I'm yelling at someone on the internet right now. So you're gonna have to excuse me for not engaging with you emotively because I'm currently mad at Mia for saying Mia. I need a person who it doesn't feel as though they are being ignored, left out, snubbed, or whatever by that manner. And she's somebody who is a receiving type that is metaphysical, which means she's quite comfortable as long as the circumstances of her environment don't compel her to move out of that kind of zone of reception with a bunch of pressure on either her SI or her SE. And so this environment pressures her not at all, or TE. Like she comes from an environment where there was this sort of constant TE frame of checking to see what you're doing wrong being applied to her. And here with me, my dad has that frame sort of a little bit. Like I always kind of get a little nervous when my dad comes around because depending on his mood, he might be in a white glove kind of a mood and come in and be like, son, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, God damn it. But I certainly don't. My frame was born of being the son of an ESTJ, just that her frame was born perhaps of being a daughter of an ESTJ, because neither of us we both like to play and not have expectations put upon us. We want as few expectations about what we're going to do or experience in the moment as possible. Eric, would you say that there's no such thing as below 100 IQ and that it's really just TI polar, just like how there's no such thing as ADHD? No, I don't agree with that. I think that IQ is a test that people can take and score anywhere from the worst possible score to the best possible score on it. And I think that to the extent that you think IQ is a meaningful score, that it is in fact true that people have IQ scores ranging from Mia to Mia. It is also the case that there are people who seem to have nothing very specifically named wrong with them, but are so holistically dim in their cognition that they get put into special ed. I've worked with a couple such kids. Again, I worked in special ed from about age 24, 3 to age 33, somewhere right around. I worked in maybe 32. I worked in special ed for about 8-9 years, something like that. I was a classroom teacher. I had a full class of special ed kids. I worked with different populations. I started off with elementary special ed kids who were ambulatory and were trying to be mainstreamed into a general population. That was an absolutely exhausting job. And then I transitioned eventually into working with profoundly retarded post-high school students. In special ed, you can stay in high school until you're 22 if you are mentally retarded. It's something that has to do with the Individual Disabilities Education Act, which is the federal law. Anyway, I worked with that population, and those were mostly non-ambulatory, in wheelchairs. I had to feed them. I had to lift them out of their wheelchairs, put them on a table, change their diapers, put them back in the wheelchair. That was my job. It was custodial. I actually preferred that job because there was a piano in my room, and we did a lot of music appreciation. I wrote the song Russ and Steven while being a teacher at that job. And I didn't know how to play the piano at all when I started in that class. Really, I had a couple piano lessons as a little kid, I guess. But and by the end of teaching at that place, I was okay at the piano, and I had written a fairly complicated piano song. If you've not heard Russ and Steven before, let me see if I can find a link to it. The singing part of it goes, Russ and Steven delight in delivering cheese every day. and the dairy that employs them ensures they earn quite reasonable pay. Russ has cheddar, American, and Swiss too. He'll bring a mold to you, Steve, and overseas from his desk easily. He oversees the cheese.
I was actually at one point placed in special ed because I was my Asperger's diagnosis. They felt that was a justification for placing me in, even though I was doing perfectly fine in school. I was just not really motivated that much, which is why I wasn't really getting consistent grades. But if I applied myself, I would get good grades, which is kind of weird.
Okay, so here's the piano song I wrote with a special ed teacher. I'll put it in the live stream here. Well, David Sanderson, I think you were put in special ed because it's pretty clear to me that you, sir, you're not aware of it because you're incapable of metacognition, but you, sir, are profoundly mentally retarded. Yes, it's true. I'm with you. I also am profoundly mentally retarded. I recently got back from a symposium where I felt kind of on display, but it was for a university class, and they wanted a chance to interview somebody who was profoundly mentally retarded. So I said, okay, I will go. I will do there. I will be that person. I got questions. Can you feed yourself? Yes, I can feed myself in the sense that I can successfully get food into my mouth. However, I'm likely to make a mess. I'm likely to smear it on my face at the same time, throw it all around me. Somebody asked how I get around. I pointed out I ride the bus. They wondered how that went. I said, well, it generally goes fine. The bus drivers are understanding. I do have a bad habit of masturbating while riding the bus, and people around me don't really like that. But I just say, and they understand, I guess. It's the best I can do. Being profoundly mentally retarded is a cross to bear. I'm not going to deny that. But I have learned to work around it. And David Sanderson obviously has too. We met each other, in fact, in profoundly mentally retarded person support group. Isn't that right, David? Mm-hmm. See? He confirms it. And Joey's right. Recognizing it is the first step to acceptance. And acceptance is the first step to celebration. And celebration is the first step to primacy. So it's my accepting my mental retardation that guarantees that eventually it will become the normative standard to which all people must uphold. Or, I guess, no two. Get rid of the two in that sentence. I'm sorry for that I'm sorry for the preposition. It shouldn't have been there. I'm sorry. I didn't know. I don't know what I did. I don't know. I fucked it up. That preposition had no business being there. You're right to shame me. So, Sanderson says, Kermit's Pimp says, Sanderson's an INTJ, right? I don't know what Sanderson is. I've not really discussed that with him. I've sort of been operating under the assumption that he is, because, he's certainly got a little bit of a TE, or he's got that sort of TE smell. Smells like sawdust and impatience. TE smells like sawdust and impatience. I think that's fair to say. Yeah, I type policed my cart recently. I did. Smells like TE spirit. Here I am now. Tell me how I take bad care of my property. ESTJ. Scold me more now.
And I.
David Sanderson has a cool video where he draws these little figures, paints them as he talks. I like that idea very much. I like that idea too. Hambone, are you playing an INFP in a competitive game that involves purportedly intellectual robustness? You better watch out. INFPs are deadly at that shit. You think, I'm the thinker here, what the fuck? But INFPs, I know from experience. I spent years getting my ass whipped at chess by Liz, INFP. At Connect 4 by Liz, INFP. At a lot of those kind of things. Like anything she wanted to compete at all, she was a beast. Like you had no idea INFPs have that in them. The key thing to remember is this. INFPs are intellectual ninjas only when it doesn't matter at all. When it's about something important, they put away their TI completely and say, I am not taking out that dirty, filthy napkin. You know?
My mom's an INFP. I know she is. I don't have any doubts about that.
Yeah. I bet you nobody can beat her at Connect 4.
I don't know. She doesn't really play competitive games.
But when she does.
Yeah, she can get really good at stuff.
Eric,
she mostly just plays mobile games on her phone. So she likes certain board games, but not really like chess, but more like Dungeons and Dragons type games.
Yeah, that's cool. I like those things too. All right. Says Eric, talk about implications of innovative people's strengths being the predominant or only real metric of competency. Okay, so the statement that innovative people's strengths are the predominant or only real metric of competency, I don't understand where that statement comes from. If you're thinking that that's a statement that I've made and that you want me to explain further what I mean or defend it, that's not what I was saying at any point. I was saying that the competencies of innovative people are long shots, that in fact they correlate poorly with high status, but that when you hit something that that pops in the right fashion, that at that point the rare innovator can also become high status. But that as a general rule, the more innovative you are, the less consistent you are at following proven approaches to success, and so therefore accordingly, the less likely you are to attain conventional success. But because you're going sort of black swan approach, there's a higher ceiling. If you do hit some particularly genius new idea and are able to convert that into status and or money and or profit and or whatever, then of course sky's the limit. Not my quote, it's Eric's, but I still, what's the quote? INFPs are all hot chicks as far as I'm concerned. I actually remember saying that one for a change. Eric, can you explain in detail how one breaks a curse put on them, as that may assist someone who has been cursed? Well, first instead of explaining, let me do a little bit of anti-curse workings here. You mad bro is concerned about a violation of the metaphysical field, which is to say a negative application of the magical thinking realm in ways that run afoul of the virtuous goodness that God would will upon that field of attention. So what I want to do now is to transubstantiate this bong rip as a cleansing smoke upon that field of metaphysics, whereupon that particular misapplication of magical thinking has landed. Here we go. This should cleanse it out right away. But if there's anything additional, we'll get into it later. Okay, but this should solve it. Karma's Pimp, I haven't blocked you. I hereby transubstantiate the bong rip. Let that curse here referred to be removed. It stands no chance before the light of my transubstantiated truth. Do you feel it? You feel the cleansing? I feel it. Okay, so Ooh says that's not what I meant. I meant in terms of a particular society. That's why I said society, not universally. When you said I'm trying to get back to what you said. Talk about the implications of innovative people's strengths being the predominant or only real metric of competency. I mean, so, okay, if I were to take that statement at face value, then I would say the only real measure of competency is extroverted intuition, at least for me. Can you imagine a society, I guess you're saying, I mean, you didn't say anything about society at all, actually, but regardless, you're saying, imagine a society in which that is the prioritized virtue. I mean, I don't think it would last very long. I don't think society could persist well if, in fact, it rewarded too much intuitive innovation and too little basic practical follow through and stuff, you know? Jeff Shaw says, that's a great shirt, Eric. Relaxed fit. You know what I like about this shirt? I like the fact that it has a cigarette pocket here. This gives any shirt plus 15 points. Is it a relaxed fit? I have no idea. I don't know how to tell if
It looks nice.
I don't know how to tell if that's true or not. It does have something written on the back, by the way. It says this on the back. Do you see what it says? Something about hiking. I can't really see it when I turn around, you know. But yeah, frankly, I think probably what most people are thinking here is I liked it better before I knew it had something on the back. Me too. And when I put it on, I think I like this shirt, and then I remember, oh yeah, there's this thing on the back. I don't really like that, but it's easy to forget about because guess what? It's behind me. I'm not looking at it usually. So it would be a cool shirt if it was just this. This is so nice and neat and minimalist and like aesthetically zippy. Whereas with the thing on the back, it loses at least 20% of its zip, maybe 40% of its zip, maybe all of its zip. Maybe it's no longer zippy. It's just a nice shirt. I don't know. My favorite shirt is my peachy folder shirt. That yellow shirt that's modeled after the peachy folders. Definitely my favorite shirt. It gets the most comments out in public, and they're interesting comments. It's like it's just right. You know, as an ENTP, I want a shirt that causes people to comment to me about what I'm wearing, and yet I don't want to be trying too hard, and yet I'm too old to be too flashy, right? This peachy shirt is perfect. It's the actual images on it are so bland and conservative and ordinary because it's the design of the peachy folder, which has like these sort of all-American high school sports scenes on it that are drawn in this kind of just sort of silhouette-y, kind of sketched way. And the cool thing about it is that it's actually rather obscure in the sense that if you were born later than Mia, you have no idea what it is probably. And if you were born earlier than Mia, you probably go, oh my gosh, that's a peachy folder. So it's like, it's perfect. It's a great shirt to engage with the public in a way that is ideationally interesting, but doesn't have any bad FE consequences that trying to be too ideationally interesting with your clothing might otherwise incur. It's a complicated calculus, especially when you're 50 years old. 50 years old is great. It means you're able to pull off certain shit. Like I can pull off that hat. If you're
Nice. He's gonna get
I
the
thought he was 49 years old.
I am 49.
He is
I
49.
just round up to 50.
Yeah.
I can pull off this hat. A 26-year-old wearing this hat, it just says he's prematurely balding. A 50-year-old wearing this hat, it goes like, what a distinguished looking fellow.
Very much so. What are Spirit Mayo's still in the chat? Probably. Oh, I just checked. Yes.
Joey
Because you
mentions
can at people.
Joey mentions Slipknot and he mentions Limp Bizkit. What I want to mention is the greatest celebrity name of all time. I am just desperately anxious for a celebrity to name their child this. I want a celebrity to name their child Woke Biscuit.
Eric, stop deceiving them. You are 72. That's what Cloud said.
That's in dog years, Cloud.
Yeah.
So, Eric, the practical follow-through is covered, meaning after the ideas are generated, the process of implementation is basically automated without humans. So you're imagining a society that maximally rewards innovation and doesn't reward follow-through on shit, because follow-through is not necessary because everything else is automated besides innovation. You know, when you got the prototype built and you want to show me proof of concept, I'd be happy to check out that idyllic society you've envisioned. But I'm not sure about that. Guys, you know what Brits call cum? Dick tea? Is that true? Do British people call that?
Cloud wants to play chess. Do you have OBS? Are you using that? Or
I'm not
you just
using it right now. I'm just
webcam?
using the webcam. The thing about it is, interestingly, I try to note the way that YouTube treats the webcam streams a little bit differently than it treats the software streams. And I'm not sure if I really, I think, I mean, I'm not sure YouTube knows what it wants to do with streams yet, really, frankly. It's especially with mine, because they all start off when I'm done streaming as limited ads, no ads, because it's too adult. And then after the next day, I'll come back, and if it wasn't too adult, it will have switched on to you're fine. So it's like, clearly YouTube doesn't trust me really, but they are trying to figure out what to do with channels like mine, where I'm completely accurate in all my self-reporting on all my uploaded videos, but I also do a lot of live streams, and the range of those live streams ranges from incredibly dry and intellectual discussions of philosophy and politics that are not a bad word in sight, to Eric's bedtime stories, which are basically improvised pornography. So it's like, what the hell do you do with this channel if you're YouTube? You don't really know what a live stream is going to be. Why don't you know? Because I don't know what the live stream is going to be. And so after I've already started it and we're going here, this one starts with, why did this live stream come to be at all? Because as soon as I heard that David Attenborough or whoever was narrating it say that thing about how clearly the low status males have a greater need to innovate, and that's what makes them more innovative, I thought, boy, that's assuming an awful lot. You could also interpret it the other way around, and I got a live stream about this because someone's got to wag some sort of finger at David Attenborough for the harms incurred by arbitrarily, uniformly applying this kind of dumb evolutionary adaptation frame to everything. It's like,
well, don't you think? I don't know if he. He didn't write the script, did he? I don't think he did. He just sounded it off. That's kind of like what he's paid for.
Okay, fine. Look, I'm not actually busting David Attenborough's chops.
Okay.
I choose to name the person maybe, or the origin of the thing, but I'm busting the chops of that claim in general and that kind of thinking. I don't really care who said it or whatever. I just attribute it because I'm telling the story of how it came to be that I was happily watching YouTube videos about animals, and then all of a sudden I stomped my foot and I had to live stream.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And now we're at 3 hours, so I think I'm going to conclude, this has been a highly successful live stream by my standards. We have been at or around or slightly above even 30 people for almost the whole duration of it. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna quit while I'm ahead.
Dynamic, but it's smooth. I think that the combination of the two is probably what's going to get you the most, views, concurrent views. That's my guess. I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't really looked at.
What do you mean? Talking about opening the room to talk to people like that?
Hmm?
You mean how going into the room and talking to other people like that?
I mean, yeah, that could be an example. I just like the dynamic, like it goes from one thing to another, but it doesn't become too
Scattered.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
I agree.
I understand your
Jay,
words. Who
what's
was the
your
one
name?
who
Jim
agreed?
agrees.
Who agreed? Jay?
Jim agrees.
Or Jim. Okay. Did I put the link for Russ and Steven already into the thing here? I don't remember. I'll put it here. If I put it already, just it's repetition. But that's that piano song that I wrote when I was a special ed teacher. The only piano song I've ever written. And yeah, I'm not going to tell a bedtime story. If in fact I have trouble going to sleep or whatever, and I decide to tell a bedtime story, I will make a live stream later. I'll call it Host Eric's Bedtime Story, and I'll actually set it to age restricted probably in advance so that, I don't know, YouTube says, hey, look how responsible Eric is or something. Do you enjoy morning poppers? I don't know what that is. Anybody know what a morning popper is? I'm not sure. All right. Good night, everybody. Don't forget to eat plenty of cheese. I love you all, and thank you for being here. You're my precious someones.
All right.